Chapter 1878. Ever since the underworld blew up their own doorstep, the void here had been quiet. The Order warriors who stood guard day after day listened to the news of the other nodes that were still fighting fiercely through soul transmission. They heard that the other nodes were even more violent because they had replaced the origin shrine and were cleaning up the inventory of the previous energy towers. Recently, they had even blocked other people's doorsteps. Their hands were itchy and they really wanted to move around. On the other hand, there was nothing in the void as far as the eye could see. There was even a hole in the abyssal death mist sealing circle. Their sealing circle was no longer complete, but it was of no use. There was nothing they could do even if they went to the lower and middle planes. The sanctums of the underworld that should have covered the entire lower and middle planes were now gone. They had probably completed some plan and brought them all back. As for the lower and middle planes that had already fallen, they were gone. Nothing was left. Only desolation and traces of destruction were left behind. Even if they wanted to repair them, they did not know where to start. Even if they could repair it, there was no way to repair it. According to the previous situation, finding the passage to the lower and middle planes was definitely a good thing. But they had already found the passage earlier and no longer needed this hole. Its appearance at this time was not even considered as icing on the cake. For the time being, he had told Lord Maple and the others about the news. The result was as he had expected in exchange for the notice of ignore it, indicating that Lord Maple felt that this information was really useless. Green squatted on the first step of the entrance of the Origin Shrine. Facing the empty void, he sighed deeply. Today is also a day where I have nothing to do. Speaking of which, he had not used the new Origin Shrine since it had arrived. Leaving it here was just gathering dust. Boom, boom. The sound of the vibration was not caused by the explosion of energy. The movement came from the direction of the Order domain. He thought that the group of demolition guys finally could not help but want to cause trouble. When he slowly moved his gaze over, his jaw suddenly dropped. A huge white pillar of unknown origin occupied a corner of the Order domain. The huge size and the mighty energy coming from the inside made Green stunned. After a while, he quickly came back to his senses and teleported over. What's going on? What's going on? Where did you get such a... Green moved closer to take a look, and his face twitched again. This pillar was really tall. What a strange pillar. Lord Qing, the deputy commander of the node, bowed and said, "Yes, this is the energy tower made by the logistics department. It's a new generation energy tower made by Lord Feng. It said that this is a level 3 energy tower." Level 3. Qing Jun was stunned again. He looked up at the energy tower that seemed to be 50,000 feet high, and his face continued to twitch. He stepped forward and reached out to pat the tower, and his face twitched even more. This new generation of third-level energy tower is more destructive than the original first-level energy tower. It seems that it uses a new structural core. No wonder the front line has been busy clearing out the old generation's inventory these days. The new generation energy tower is several streets away from them, and it will basically be useless in the future. What about the others? The level 1 energy pagoda doesn't seem to be ready yet. It'll take some time. As for the level 2 energy pagoda, it's still on the way, but should be ready soon. Before the deputy commander could finish his words, the entire realm of Order trembled. It was as if a huge monster was about to teleport into the realm of Order. The deputy commander reacted and quickly waved his hand. "Stabilize the realm of Order. The express delivery has arrived. Over there, hurry up and make some space. This is a big guy. Don't complain to us if you get flattened." The voice of logistics suddenly sounded in the realm of Order. The group of people who were pointed out by the energy pointed to themselves in a daze. Then, they quickly put away the energy towers that were permanently stationed in the realm of Order, vacated a huge open space, and hurriedly slipped to the side. As soon as the group of people stood firm, the vibration in the space intensified by several grades. Qing Jun stamped his feet to stabilize the shaking domain when a strong white light suddenly shone from the open space, blinding everyone's eyes. When the white light faded and they opened their eyes again, Everyone's breathing stagnated and they were almost suffocated. Qing Jun's eyes were wide open. A white pillar that was 10,000 feet high, accompanied by a strong sense of coercion, as if the god of origin had descended, made everyone present stare with their eyes wide open. It was not that the coercion from the origin energy was too huge. This coercion did not have any effect on them at all. The reason why they were so shocked that they almost gouged their eyes out was that this pillar was too big. Qing Jun's face rhythmically jumped out of a music score. After a long while, he pointed to the two giant pillars in front of him, one big and one small, with a distorted face. What is it? What is it? Isn't it too big? The deputy commander was shocked back to his senses by the commander-in-chief's roar. He scratched his head and said, "This is indeed the new generation of energy towers. Well, our rationing here is still early. The earliest node 0. Well, there's already an uproar there. Everyone is blocking the door to kill the enemy while discussing how to place this behemoth in the realm of order. 7 or 8 conclusions have been reached, and each one is inseparable from the need to expand the realm of order. We don't care. We only care about the construction. You guys find your own way to solve it. Anyway, we are still idle here at the moment." "Bah, you guys are idle, but we are busy here. If you really have nothing to do, you can come over and help. We are really too busy here." The voice of logistics suddenly cursed. After saying a few words, it suddenly went silent. Everyone could not help but smile bitterly. It was estimated that it would be very difficult to mass-produce new energy towers. Well, it was estimated that it would be very difficult to store them. This thing can be shrunk when it is not in use. The deputy commander stepped forward and patted the third-level energy pagoda. That 50,000 feet tall pillar instantly shrunk to a height of only 10 feet. Yes, it can be shrunk. It can be shrunk to about the same size as the previous generation energy pagoda we have. That is, if we put them all away and throw them out at the same time during a fight, the impact will probably be very great. Qing Jun's face twitched. His gaze fell on a circular opening on the top of the energy tower. He suddenly pointed up and asked, "What about the energy core? The logistics didn't get the energy core out?" "About this." The deputy commander threw the energy tower aside and let the Order warriors study it themselves. Lord Feng said that the new energy core still needs 1 or 2 days. These few days, let's use the original energy core to practice and wait for the new one to come out. After all, the new generation of energy towers, in addition to retaining the basic functions of the previous generation of energy towers, is almost a completely new creation. Everyone still needs to adapt to it. "Oh." Qing Jun was stunned for a long time. He folded his arms and asked, "What about the staffing? Judging from the size of this tower, can one tower accommodate 10 people or 100 people?" The deputy commander's face stiffened. He turned his head and said faintly, "1 tower per person." Qing Jun and everyone else, "Oh my God, this tower was so big that it was actually a single weapon for each person." No wonder the people at Node 0 were thinking about how to expand the realm of order. If this was arranged according to the number of energy towers in the past, the realm would be filled to the brim. And they seem to be able to see the scene of tens of thousands of people here throwing out a white wall when the underworld attacked. In fact, a 10,000 feet tall building was not particularly big for them. They had seen bigger things before. This was just a child's play. For example, in the underworld, the chaos constructs and chaos aggregates were easily tens of thousands of miles or even millions of miles in size. This 10,000 feet tall tower was just a stepping stone for others. Not to mention other things, just their own attacks. The range of energy-torn attacks could be as small as 1,000 feet or as big as an immeasurable range. They were already used to it. What shocked them was that the energy towers used in the past were only 1,000 feet in size. Now, they were suddenly enlarged by dozens or even 100 times. It was a little awkward just looking at it. They did not expect the new energy tower to be so big. In the future, when they wanted to change the energy core of the energy tower, they would have to jump up and teleport. Moreover, as everyone knew, the conventional type of order creation Although the new energy tower used origin energy and origin rules as its structural core, it was still only a conventional, mass-produced creation. The bigger the size, the more crazy it was. Not to mention, it was a product of Lord Foam. Damn, just thinking about it was exciting. But excitement aside, when they turned their heads to look, the entire void was empty. Even if they were given a new energy tower, there was no way to practice. There was no target in this place. How could they practice? Green knocked on the two giant energy towers for a while. He crossed his arms and pondered for a long time. Then, he raised his hand and knocked on his palm. Anyway, let's practice first. There are a lot of energy cores left anyway. Lord Foam will make a new energy core in a while. The old ones are basically useless. Just leave some for emergencies. Now, let's practice and try to get familiar with it. Everyone looked up at the two giant energy towers. Then, they looked down at the empty void in silence. The deputy commander could not help but say, "We don't even have a target. How are we going to practice?" Ching Jun rolled his eyes at him and pointed to the void in front of him. Just bombard the void indiscriminately. Everyone, a few minutes later, the two energy torrents rushed into the void and pulled out an extremely long tail. Then, they disappeared. Then, a strong order impact burst out every few seconds. Just the movement of the energy explosion made the entire realm of order tremble violently. It was like the shock wave of a meteorite hitting the ground. Clang. Well, it was really noisy. The energy towers did not make a boom-bang sound when they fired, but a clang sound like the sound of a head smashing into a metal basin. It was heavy, the echo was huge, and there was a huge vibration. It was not the tower itself that was vibrating. It was as stable as a rock, unaffected by wind and rain. However, the energy core gathered and then burst out with a torrent of energy, which made the entire realm of order tremble violently. The replacement speed of the energy tower will probably be forcibly suppressed. As for the manufacturing speed, let the logistics department talk about it later. The new generation energy tower's ordinary attack method is already destructive against all void planes. The places where the strong order impact sweeps will leave extremely rich order and origin energy, which should be caused by the energy of the attack itself. At present, the maximum output has not been tested yet. Well, with the current energy core, there's probably no way to test the explosion of the strong order impact when it is overloaded. We still need to observe the load of the new energy tower when it is overloaded. We will talk about this when the time comes. The current energy core can't let the new energy tower attack at full power. The vice commander raised his head and looked at the circular opening at the top of the energy tower. There was a small mountain of energy crystals piled up there. Hundreds of energy cores were used to maintain the energy tower's normal operation. No, even maintaining the energy tower's normal state was quite difficult. The power that it released was far beyond their imagination. After the new energy tower is installed, coupled with the new energy cores that Lord Maple created, we will be able to see how high the true power of the Realm of Order has been pulled to. The vice commander said, "In the future, when the new energy tower is installed and matched with the new energy cores that Lord Maple created, we will be able to see how high the true power of the Realm of Order has been pulled. It's just too noisy. It needs to be dealt with." Green finally finished picking his itchy ears. "So you've seen it? Then please use 3 words to give a comment." The deputy commander brushed his bangs and gave a thumbs up. "Good stuff. Very good." Green waved his hand and patted the void. Without saying a word, he picked up the level 2 energy tower and ran. As he ran, he shouted, "I'm going to the node next door to have a good meal. Help me look after this place first." Everyone, such a big tower was carried away, just like that. By the way, running to another node was not to freeload, but to snatch monsters. Could this also be called a good meal? Shouldn't it be said that he was going to test the water? Later, everyone agreed that Master Green's mind had probably classified killing enemies and monsters as an essential event equivalent to 3 meals a day. In short, after tossing about the new weapon, even if the configuration was not maxed out, Master Green still could not help but want to practice so that he could rush through the void more quickly and violently. Even if there was no abyssal death mist at the entrance of the node that he was guarding at the moment, he still had to run to other nodes to cause trouble. If one paid attention to the soul message, one would probably hear the sound of chaos coming from the soul message in a short while. Those in front of the domain, make some space. I'm going to smash down 3 pairs of towers. The cursing voice from the logistics staff made everyone tremble. They hurriedly packed up the large pile of energy towers in the realm of order and retreated a distance away. As soon as they stood still, there was a flash of light behind them. Following a series of earth-shaking movements, 6 energy towers were teleported into the realm of order at once. 3 level 3 and 3 level 2 were placed side by side in front of them. It looked like a wall with 3 missing pieces. This speed seems to be quite fast. The deputy commander could not help but say, "TCH, it's actually considered slow." The previous generation of energy towers were produced in batches. In the same time, it could already arm half of the realm of order. But now, with the same effort, only 8 energy towers have been produced. The logistics staff smacked their lips in dissatisfaction. Lord Maple's new creation is indeed useful. It's just that it's a little complicated. We'll have to get used to it for a while. When we're all familiar with it, the speed of producing the new generation of energy towers will be considered normal. It will be much faster than now. The deputy commander shrugged when he heard that. If we were to use a normal conversion method, it's actually about the same. The new generation of energy towers is far superior to the previous generation of energy towers in terms of structural strength and attack power. This time, we've just compressed the scale to the level of quality. After all, the new energy towers are not so easy to destroy. It might be too early to say that. We'll have to wait for Lord Maple to produce the new energy cores and perfectly unleash the power of the new energy towers before we can judge. The deputy commander stroked his chin and was suddenly startled. That's not right. The level 1 energy towers have not been produced yet. Judging from Lord Maple's movements this time, even if the level 1 energy towers were to be processed in the same way as the previous generation of level 1 energy towers, a part of it being modified by himself, I'm afraid there would be considerable differences between the two. We don't know for the time being since we still have to wait for some time. The logistics staff started to get anxious. Well, let's not talk about it anymore. We're busy here. Other than the energy towers, we still have to do other important things. We're busy. Don't use up the previous generation of energy towers too early. The new generation of energy towers won't be fully installed so soon. What's the hurry? There's no enemy here. The deputy commander spread his hands at the empty void. By the way, I suggest you shrink the energy towers before throwing them out. It'll take more effort to teleport them if they're too big. Also, see if you can give the new energy towers some soundproofing and shockproofing. It's too noisy. All right. We'll think about it. That's more or less how the new energy towers are used. Jing Yuanji shrugged as she stood in front of Lord Maple. Hui folded his arms. The only thing I understand is that you're using the new energy towers to block other people's great rifts, farming them as EXP. Moreover, they're doing it even more aggressively. I heard that the abyssal death mist lingering in the void is almost extinguished. Jing Yuanji stuck her tongue out and turned her head. Everyone's a little excited. She whispered, "Yeah, we're too excited to use the new weapon. We can't wait to test its power and its limits. While we're at it, we're also trying different ways to open the enemy's head." I get it. I totally get it. Hui nodded vigorously. After all, who doesn't like powerful weapons? Noticing Maple's weird expression, Hui coughed dryly. Ahem. Anyway, let's take it easy. The new energy towers now. Well, while I can guarantee that none of Maple's gadgets are inferior, they're still in the trial period. They haven't even been installed with the energy cores yet. Don't get too excited and cause trouble. Jing Yuanji was silent for a moment. After thinking for a while, she decided to continue tilting her head. In fact, not long ago, a high-level primeval of the underworld arrived at Node 12. Yin Oshing turned her eyes abruptly. Hui, Sui Feng, and the others were all rubbing their hands in preparation. It was repelled by a round of concentrated fire from 20 new energy towers. The report said that the target retreated with heavy injuries. Everyone, good lord, this energy tower hasn't even been installed yet. It's just a trial product, and there are already results so quickly. Although this is definitely due to the general increase in the ranks of the Order warriors. The new energy tower is definitely another important reason. Well, it's good to hear that things are effective. Brother Lay crossed his arms and frowned. But is it okay to attract attention so quickly? It won't cause an excessive reaction from the other side, right? Personally, I think we scratch his head. He felt that it was better not to express his opinionated opinion and change the topic. Maple, what do you think? It's okay. Yin Nuashing shook her head. The level 2 and level 3 energy towers were not used as trump cards in the first place. They were only used to increase the combat power of the Void frontline. The same goes for the Temple of Origins. New creations of Order naturally need new hands to use them. These basic weapons that are used against everyone are fated not to be used as hidden combat power. Yin Nuashing turned her gaze towards the surging sea of energy. Originally, they were not used as trump cards, so there's no need to worry. Ah, that's not good to say. I'll put this card out in the open, but when the time comes, I'll use it as a trump card. There's nothing wrong with flipping the card out in the open. Everyone, she's talking about changing the energy source when the time comes. Switching a card that has already been used to a trump card in front of you. Fine, that's a mockery. As for whether or not they should react, Yin Nuashing shrugged. I actually hope that they would pay more attention to this side. Now, we can draw their attention while accumulating power. It would be even better if we could draw their movements from the rear. After all, both sides still need some time, and we're racing against time. Oh, that's probably not going to happen. Brother Lay spread his hands exaggeratedly. They came out of Node 12 to test the waters, not Node 0. Those bastards might be scared after being beaten up. We could not help smiling bitterly. He would not have noticed it if he did not mention it. He was still wondering why they would suddenly go to Node 12. Would it not be better to just charge at Node 0 and let them move around? The condensation of the new energy core will take half a day. I'm still adjusting the last details. Yin Nuashing looked at the surging sea of energy and stretched herself. Get everyone to pull back their defenses and get ready to test the complete new energy tower. Chapter 1879. The installation of the new energy tower was a rather important matter. As the most basic firepower of the entire Void frontline in the realm of Order, it was something that they who stood at the apex of the Void frontline had to pay close attention to. The new energy tower would affect the direction of 1 or 2 battles in the future, and they had to pay close attention at all times. That's true, but the new energy tower is just a prototype at the moment. The trial period hasn't even passed, and the energy core hasn't been officially installed yet, and they've already skipped all the steps and enter the installation phase. Sui Feng could not help complaining. Hui waved his hand and grinned. TCH, look at what you're saying. Our Feng's products are always the best of the best, and it's only because he had some misgivings that he called it a trial period. And those so-called misgivings, well, do you believe that Feng's misgivings actually meant, I think it can be mentioned again? Everyone nodded vehemently. They felt that it was very possible, since a certain observer had never been stingy with maximizing his attack power. Moreover, it was common knowledge that maximizing his attack power was a relative magnitude. Normal people would say that he would fill a bottle of water, and they would think that he would at most overflow a little. But Feng was different. With his standards, maximizing his attack power would mean swapping a small bottle for a large one, or a large one for an overbearing one, and he would have to carry a few extra bottles. Who knows if he would carry 2 bottles of water around his waist during a spring outing, but in the end he would have to lug an entire planet of water out. Ah, they already had a problem with the word bottle, and there was no telling which unlucky bastard had suggested that he would need to carry 196 bottles. The new energy core was nearing the end stage. At this moment, they had also created a level 2 energy tower in the observer space. They were only waiting for Yun Nua planet to prepare the new energy core and install it at the top of the energy tower. Then, they would officially begin to accept the new energy tower. Traces of violent energy flow came from the churning sea of energy, with the movement and pressure of the entire sea of energy increasing as it neared completion. If nothing out of the ordinary happened, the new energy core was also constructed from the energy of the origin relic and the origin rule. However, Yin Nuoxing did not use rule, order, energy form this time. Perhaps she had found the trick to use the origin relic without using her full power, or perhaps it was not so troublesome to condense an energy core. It's about time. Yin Nuoxing tilted her head and whispered to everyone when she sensed the expectant gazes directed at her from behind. Once the final details have been adjusted, we can come out of the furnace. I have tried my best to expand the capacity of the energy core as much as possible without affecting its maximum power. Everyone, all right, the moment he opened his mouth, he was going to max out his attack. We're used to it. We're used to it. Well, seeing that a certain someone himself was a little excited, they didn't complain anymore. We could feel the waves of energy coming from the bottom of the sea of energy. He turned his head and whispered to Jing Yuanji, "It's almost time to let the logistics department make some space to create a new energy core. I think this thing could be installed immediately as soon as it comes out." Jing Yuanji blinked her eyes and whispered, "But Lord Hui, the space between the logistics creations has been occupied by the Temple of Origin for energy sources and the new generation energy tower. There's no more space." "Yes, I know that, but I'm not talking about the location of the node. It's between the remaining new creations in the observer space." Hui nodded. Feng said before that he only used 20 creations to create energy sources. 20 of the first batch of energy sources to race against time should be enough, and the rest will be used to race against time for other things. That's what I meant. In other words, we can mobilize some people to work in the logistics department for a short period of time. The remaining dozens of creations can be used to build energy towers or the Temple of Origin. In short, don't let them be idle. Jing Yuanji nodded in response. "Yes, I'll arrange it right away." Hui then watched Jing Yuanji leave the observer space. He then knocked his head with a headache. So many troublesome things. I'm so busy. Jing Yun shrugged, her eyes showing some nostalgia. "I remember when the war broke out in our time. There was a similar scene. Back then, Hui was immediately suspicious. You didn't even dare to take apart the Temple of Origin that the heavenly god of Origin threw to you and modify it yourself. What were you so busy with?" Jing Yun was sweating profusely and quickly waved her hand. No. We definitely used more than just the Temple of Origin back then. The Fortress of Origin, the Temple of Origin, the lower nodes, the battle formations of order, the net of origin and order. Those were actually untouchable to us. We never thought of changing them. Are those things that the heavenly god of Origin gave you directly to mass produce? Jingya nodded. These things are relatively large for us, and they are used to support the power of order. We are only responsible for creating them, not modifying or building them. Ahem, that's why I'm talking about other things. For example, some of the things that life forms of order brought over themselves, things of various sizes that can also be used in this war, and things that can be used by everyone in the realm of order. These things can be created by resonating with the Temple of Origins. After they are shared, if everyone has their own opinions and suggestions when using them, and if they want to update the order creation in everyone's hands at the same time, all they need to do is to resonate with the Temple of Origins. As long as the core structure of the order creation hasn't changed into something else, there won't be any problems. Hui listened and said, "Oh, you didn't dare to use the special equipment that the heavenly god of Origin gave you directly, so you used the things that you brought with you. After all, there are countless beings of order in countless worlds. Perhaps some of them have some fun things at home." Jingyan laughed dryly. "That's right. Although the so-called fun things referred to things that could be better used to cut open the enemy's head. Well, using the Temple of Origin to unify and update the same type of order creation is actually one of the functions of the Temple of Origin." "Oh, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me so strangely?" Hui looked at him with a frown. Why haven't I heard of this before? Because I just remembered it. I suddenly remembered it when I saw these recent things. Jingyan said as he looked at Sui Feng and the others. You guys didn't remember it too? Sui Feng and the others shook their heads vigorously. Sui Feng shrugged helplessly. As a bunch of naughty brats who were thrown into the quarantine house not long after joining the war as a backup plan, how much more do you think we know compared to you veterans who have been on the battlefield for countless years? Brother Lei covered his face and turned his head. Although we all come from the same era, but our actual combat experience is actually accumulated in these 5 years. The previous 1 or 2 eras don't count at all. When we fought, the war wasn't too intense. The most we know is what the gods have arranged, and it's not comprehensive. Seeing Hui Jun's odd look at them, Jingyan laughed dryly and quickly waved his hand. Ahem, actually this function, well, it's not that useful. The Temple of Origin uses energy resonance to change the same type of order creation. But our energy towers are divided into 3 levels, and all 3 levels are the same type of core. If we synchronize them all at once, they will bump into each other. Furthermore, this kind of new creation of order that directly changed its core structure would not be able to affect anything. It would not be able to link 2 different creations of order with different cores. It would not be able to change the previous generation into the new one. Hui Jun's odd look slowly returned to normal. Well, now that you mention it, I suddenly feel that this function is dispensable. Back to the topic, changing the core was equivalent to changing a new creation. There was no fundamental connection between the old and new energy towers, and they were 2 different creations. As for the function of the Temple of Origin that Jingyan just mentioned, well, it could only be used to make small repairs to the same creations that had not been changed. It might be much easier to deal with this situation. For example, if they wanted to brand an origin mark on the original energy tower, they only needed to use the energy resonance of the Temple of Origin, and there was no need to rebuild everything. In short, it was suitable for small changes, and it could not do anything bigger. Hui Jun thought about it, and suddenly had an idea. Hey, I think I have a good idea. Everyone turned their heads. What idea? Jingyan scratched her head and reminded him again. That function is indeed a little useful, but it's really not that useful now. Unless you're saying that we'll change the energy towers into 3 different types of energy towers in the future. Otherwise, isn't it about that? Hui Jun shook his head hard and interrupted him. The new generation of energy towers are still being installed, and the previous generation of energy towers are all useless. Aren't we using them now? Ahem, we can recycle the old energy towers and use the Temple of Origin to convert them into the same thing. The same thing and gathering together. These 2 dangerous phrases gave everyone a flash of inspiration. They immediately remembered that in past battles, the energy towers and energy cores that had been used would be gathered together. When the same amount was sufficient, these things that were filled with the endless power of chaos and order would stimulate each other and turn into a huge bomb, and then be sent to the depths of the death fog of the abyss to set off fireworks. Sui Feng wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. You're not thinking of creating an unprecedented thing, are you? Hui Jun flashed a brilliant smile and gave him a thumbs up. Smart. Everyone was speechless, as expected of a close friend who had known each other for more than 10 years. Sometimes, these 2 people's thoughts were exactly the same. The difference was that little brother Feng's mind was always thinking about creating a big explosion, while Hui Jun only had this idea occasionally. But no matter what, every idea was too big explosion. Let's not waste time. Hui Jun was about to mention it to Maple when the movement from the sea of energy stunned him. He turned and saw Maple's relieved, completed expression and held back the explosion plan he was about to mention. While they were discussing, Maple had completed the condensation and adjustment of the new energy core, and the once violent energy in the observer space was now slowly calming down. Okay, it's finally done. When everyone heard this, they hurriedly came forward and looked down at the sea of energy with yin washing. The energy whirlpool below was slowly calming down under the control of a force. At the same time, a crystal-clear object was slowly emerging from the whirlpool. After a quick teleportation, it flashed and finally appeared in front of them. A radiant energy crystal appeared in front of everyone. Its colorful color confirmed everyone's guess that it was created with origin energy. In terms of appearance, it looked like, well, from the side, it looked like a bean. The oval shape and the small concave part in the middle really looked like a bean. Plus, it was a colorful crystal, so its surface did not look smooth. But relatively speaking, the size of this energy crystal was more than 100 feet tall and more than 500 feet thick. It was a little thick, and as a hard crystal, it did not look smooth. In fact, the surface of each individual crystal could reflect light like a mirror, but when put together, there were many more edges and corners, and it did not look smooth. Also, the pea looked a bit like a plump pea with a concave arc in the middle. Why did it look like they were hallucinating, as if they were seeing something else like that thing, that was very important? See, you blurted out, it looks like a kidney. Yin Nuashing. Everyone. I recognized it. Ouch. Everyone covered their eyes with their palms. Some things might not be recognized at first glance, but once it was said out loud, it would be distorted into the thing in her words no matter how they looked at it in the future. Well, Huijun was already smashing his own head with the energy crystal. He probably needed to spend a lot of money to buy a brain that had never heard of this sentence, or to change his own soul. Yin Nuashing's mouth trembled for a while. She turned her head and looked at the new energy core for a long time. After a while, her face darkened. Sui Feng and the others guessed that little brother Feng had also realized it. At first glance, there did not seem to be any problems. So what should they do next? Boom! A huge energy core sank into the sea of energy, and the impact of the fall caused waves to splash onto everyone. They calmly wiped off the energy on their faces and turned to look at little brother Maple. The latter was hurriedly mobilizing the energy in the sea of energy. Looking at the commotion, it seemed like he was going to reshape the kidney, the energy core once more. Due to a certain girl's careless words, the inspection process of a new energy tower was delayed by 10 minutes. In other words, just as everyone was busy forgetting the scene and the sentence just now, a soft sound of energy rang out. Everyone turned their heads and saw a certain observer's frightened expression before heaving a sigh of relief. It was clear that the tower was completed. The energy core that had reappeared was no longer in the shape that made everyone crumble. It was now a perfectly round ball. It appeared that the observer's spirit had been tainted by the words, "It looks like a kidney," and had resolutely decided to change the appearance of the energy core. However, he could not think of what to change it into, and could only subconsciously make it round. After all, this guy's ability to make round balls had always been good. From the energy crystals to the world orbs and high-concentration energy aggregates, they were all round balls. This was a very round ball. Without 10 years of ball making, it would not be so round. The shape of the new energy core was decided to be that perfectly round ball. It was a ball that was 100 feet in diameter. It was really round. It was clearly a crystalline surface. The kidney just now, its shape just now looked like it was pieced together by pieces of glass. It was not round at all, and one could tell at a glance that it needed to be coiled for millions of years. On the other hand, the round ball before them was completely polished. It was also a crystalline surface, but this one was very round and smooth without a single blemish. It was clearly a perfect work of art, and if it was wrapped in a layer of stone and taken to stone gambling, a group of people would probably fight over it. He gave up on smashing his brain to make himself lose his memory. Throwing away the cracked energy crystal in his hand, he moved forward and looked at the big round ball, breathing a long sigh of relief. Phew, my view of the world is back. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes at him. So why did you make a kidney just now? We could not help but ask. Yin Nuashing continued to roll her eyes. I did not purposely change that shape. You guys always complain about me making balls, so I did not change it. I let it evolve into a shape on its own, but I did not expect it to look like that. I thought it was a flat bean, but we thought so too at first. Sui Feng could not help but mutter. Until Everyone turned to look at the girl who did not choose her words carefully. She shrunk her neck and stuck her tongue out. But the shape just now really looked like a kidney. Yin Nuashing covered her eyes. Let's change the topic. Next. What's the next step? Prepare to install it and let the new energy tower fire a couple of times. We pointed at the huge energy tower that had been sitting quietly for a long time. Suifeng walked forward and patted the energy core. After looking at it, he suddenly said, Brother Feng, this is a structural core, right? Ah, you can see it? Yin Nuashi nodded and walked forward. She reached out and rubbed the smooth surface of the energy core. The inside is the structural core, and there's a shell on the surface. Look, it's a proper structural core. The structural core is used as an energy core. Jing Yun's face twisted into a walnut. Will this work? No problem. Yin Nuashing nodded and patted the energy core. The internal structural core is mostly used to gather energy. You could say that the entire energy core is a huge energy gathering source, while the shell on the surface is used for energy conversion. This is complemented by the new generation energy tower's ability to accelerate the gathering and conversion of energy, ensuring that no matter how fast the energy is gathered, the energy they shoot out together would be origin energy. Compared to the previous generation of energy towers and energy cores where almost half of the energy came from their own output, the new energy towers and energy cores are more focused on gathering energy. That way, when the first energy tower is needed to gather all the energy, it will be able to gather energy much faster than the previous generation of energy towers, thereby increasing the power of that strike. However, although most of the energy core's interior is the structural core, the corresponding energy is also left in it. So even if it's isolated in an absolutely enclosed small space, it can still pour out a decent amount of energy. Plus, the energy tower itself is a huge energy source. So when the two are isolated together, it can also ensure that they can continue to attack for a considerable period of time. I've been dealing with the capacity problem just now to deal with this possible situation. Everyone's face twisted into a walnut like Jing Yun. This guy is breaking the bottom line again. We suddenly thought of fatal problem. He was so shocked that he started sweating. Wait a minute, Feng. You said that this is a structural core, right? Yes, what's the matter? Yin Nuashing looked at his old friend who had a tacit understanding and revealed a playful smile. That devilish smile confirmed 80% of Huey's thoughts in advance. Then, please tell me this energy core in front of me isn't just an embryo, right? Yin Nuashing smiled knowingly for the first time in a long time. She snapped her fingers. Congratulations, you're right, but there's no prize. Everyone, she broke the bottom line of 2 levels in one go. New things always need to be tested. Yin Nuashing smiled and weighed the energy core in her hand a few times. After the test, we'll decide what to do with the second strengthening, right? It's not over yet. It's taking so long. Hui wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled bitterly. What? It's only been a day. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes at him. I said that a new energy core would take 1 or 2 days. Have you forgotten? Didn't you realize that it's only been a day? Everyone was still speechless. What she meant was that they needed a day to build an embryo and the rest of the day to complete it completely. The time was really tight. In short, they carried this shrunken energy tower and the new energy core that was about to be installed on it and came to the realm of order of Node 0 after a long time. Lord Feng and Lord Hui, who were hiding in the rear to study the big killer weapon, and Jing Yuanji and Yi Qing, who were guarding the front line, were also a little surprised to see them come out. Lord Feng, Lord Hui, why are you here? Yi Qing quickly came forward and bowed with a smile. I haven't seen you come out of the observer space for a long time. Is there anything important here today? Jing Yuanji had just seen them and directly reported at this time. Lord Hui, the group of people in the observer space has been arranged. When do you think they should go over? Go now. Since we said that we're racing against time, we have a show that we're racing against time. Hui waved his hand and looked at the realm of order that was a little chaotic because of their group's collective movement, referring to the sudden 10 times excitement of the cannon fire, and waved his hand to Yi Qing and said, We're out to test the new clang. Everyone's body shuddered. Wow, that's an excessive noise. Yin Nuashing and the others looked up at the 30 to 40 energy pillars that stood in front of them like a wall. They had just fired a volley, and that movement was probably not as loud as the previous generation of energy towers' 10,000 cannons. And now, clang! Huey's whole body was trembling, and he dug hard at his itchy ears. This movement is like firing cannons in the brain. I Ching covered his ears and smiled bitterly through soul transmission. At present, everyone's feedback is all the same. The new generation energy tower is good in everything, just that, clang. Yin Nuashing shuddered. This noise shook the void. After the resonating noise in the soul faded, I Ching suddenly spoke 3 times faster. It's just too noisy. Even soul transmission can't filter out this layer of noise. Now, we can only take the opportunity to communicate quickly because it takes less than 6 seconds to recharge. Everyone is still trying to figure out how to. Clang! Huey's brain was about to explode. He quickly waved his hand. Stop talking. Submit a report later. We'll see how to deal with it. Everyone, stop for a moment. Maintain the normal clearing fire. Let's test the true power of the energy tower. The group of people who were dizzy from firing the new energy towers heard this and quickly carried the huge energy towers to the side. Those who were still using the energy towers of the previous generation quickly increased their firepower to suppress the various abyssal death mist spawns that were still charging at them. At the same time, they threw curious glances over. True power. Soon, everyone understood. When they saw the level 2 energy tower that Lord Maple had thrown out, with a perfectly round energy core on top of the tower, everyone instantly understood. This energy, this aura, this was going to be a power that transcended time. Chapter 1880. The void was chaotic and disorderly. They had long gotten used to the same routine of raising their hands to kill the enemy and blasting the void into smithereens. They had gotten so used to it that they could not even feel the passage of time. Half an era ago, the enemy at least had a commander on a battlefield, and they could beat each other up in different ways every day. Although this pattern had probably reached its end after a few thousand years. Even if it was repeated, it would only be repeated once every few thousand years. They would not become numb to it every day. The battle before them was basically no different from a battle between a bunch of mindless puppets. Oh, he had forgotten that the abyssal death mist spawn were mindless puppet-type energy creations from the very beginning. It was just that the underworld had taken the sanctum of derivation back and placed some not-so-reliable newborn consciousness on these puppets, causing them to change a little. Well, just a little, just a little. It did not take long for them to get used to it. It had been a long time since he came to the front line and saw this scene again. He saw the abyssal death mist spawn charging fearlessly into the realm of order, and saw them being torn into pieces by the shock waves of order across the void. It was a familiar scene, but it gave him the illusion that it had been a long time since he last saw it. 10,000 years of hiding in the observer dimension would not have given him such a feeling. What he meant was just hiding in the observer dimension for 10,000 years would not have given him such a feeling. What he meant was just hiding in the observer dimension for 10,000 years would not have given him such a feeling. What he meant was just hiding in the observer dimension for 10,000 years was not enough to give him such a feeling. Speaking of which, we haven't fought for 10,000 years. While Yin Nuashing was setting up the huge energy tower, he asked the people around him a question that he already knew the answer to. Well, I think it's true that we haven't fought for 10,000 years. But if you say that we haven't fought for 10,000 years, Huey's face twitched a few times. Well, I personally feel that the battle in the observer dimension is more tiring than the front line. We have just changed the battlefield. Sui Feng and the others nodded. That was a battle on another battlefield. It was more complicated and strenuous than the one in front of them. It was a battle without gunpowder. It was a battle between them and something else. Well, it was their battle, not the battle of an observer. If one had to be more specific, he only had one option in his battle, and that was to torture himself with all his might. They couldn't do it. They really couldn't do it. be it the new shrine of origins or the new generation of energy towers. They were all the results of a certain observer tormenting himself with his life. It was truly a bloody footprint with every step. But to be specific, it should be, he was bleeding in front while they were stepping on the blood as they followed, step by step, until their trousers were dyed red. That was right. It was such a curious scene. There was no helping it. There were some things that only he could do, and even if they were here as fellow inheritors, but, well, they were not very reliable and were not of much use. It was fine to let them fight on the front line, but if they were to help in the observer dimension, they could only give suggestions from the sidelines. After all, they were facing the primordial relics, and if they were to do it themselves, the psychological pressure was almost on the same level as hacking their own ancestral tombs. Not to mention that Yun Nuashing was dismantling the core of the primordial relics, which for the second-generation inheritors was probably throwing out their ancestors' urns to scatter their ashes, dancing in the morning hall where the divine tablets of their ancestors were displayed. Therefore, he was the only one who could do this. In his mind, the origin heavenly god was not that particular. Unlike them, even if it had changed after such a long time in a void frontline, it still could not change so quickly. It was a little too long to complain. Yin Nuashing had already prepared the energy tower and was just adjusting the connection between the new energy core and the new energy tower. Anyway, let's try the power of a normal attack first. Yin Nuashing stretched out her hand and pressed on the pillar that was tens of thousands of feet tall. The energy core suddenly trembled, and a colorful light shone from the core. Even the primordial god runes on the energy tower released a dazzling light. This was completely different from when they were using the new energy tower, and the Order warriors around them looked very serious for a moment, holding their breaths and covering their ears with both hands. Clang! A torrent of energy that covered the entire line of sight in front of them burst out from the energy core. That torrent of energy that shook the void. It was not clear whether it was more shocking or the noise that was more shocking. Everyone had seen a lot of similar scenes of clearing an area, and for the time being, they were not surprised. However, this was the first time they had heard such a violent noise. After the new energy tower was installed with the energy core, the noise of the explosion was obviously 7 to 8 times louder. The moment the cannon fired, the vibration caused by the explosion of energy jolted everyone half a meter into the air. When they regained their footing in the realm of order, they were all stunned. They were all stunned by the ear-piercing noise, and even the tremors were 7 to 8 times louder. The moment the cannon fired, the earth shook and the mountains shook, and everyone was shaken to the point of jumping up. The roaring, multicolored torrent of energy continued to shine at the void in front of them for 5 to 6 seconds before it trembled slightly and slowly dissipated. Everyone turned to look at the void in front of them and could not help but sigh from the bottom of their hearts. The void was really spacious. There were only 2 or 3 abyssal death mist rifts left. Over the past few days, because they had been busy using up the previous generation of energy towers, they had moved the order domain to the abyssal death mist rifts, pressing the abyssal death mist spawns and the underworld fledglings into the void and bombarding them indiscriminately. Even though the commander had ordered them to withdraw the order domain a little more than half a day ago, they did not really return to Node 0. They had only moved back a little. When Lord Maple and Lord Hui arrived, they could still see the 70 to 80 abyssal death mist rifts lying in front of them. It looked like the void was being torn apart. After a while, there were only 2 or 3 abyssal death mist rifts left, and the abyssal death mist rifts were, they did not seem to be coming out for a while. When they took a closer look, the 2.5 abyssal death mist rifts were trembling slightly, as if they would collapse at any moment. The destructive power of a normal attack has already exceeded the power of order disintegration released with the help of a regular magic array. As Yun Nuashing spoke, she clapped her hands lightly, causing the silent order domain to slowly recover from its stiff state. The attack range is also tens of thousands of times larger than order disintegration of the same level. But it can still be improved. Everyone was speechless. It's coming. She's continuing to be inhumane. Ah, that's right, the energy core can still be strengthened. After all, it's just a shell now, and it's not officially complete yet. This level 2 energy tower had a destructive power that was comparable to the destruction of order. Furthermore, it had such a wide range of attack. Furthermore, the charging time of the energy tower was only about 6 seconds. Furthermore, this was just a normal attack. Everyone was already in awe of this level 2 energy tower. According to their understanding, this blast would definitely destroy a large number of things. It could even cause the attacks of their allies to miss because they would be taken out first by the enemy. With such a large attack range and full destructive power, it had perfectly inherited the characteristics of a certain observer. The moment this weapon was placed in the realm of order, it had already made the hearts of the Order warriors bloom with joy. According to past conventions, an energy tower alone would not be able to unleash such a huge attack. In the past, if an energy tower wanted to unleash such an attack, other than gathering the energy of other energy towers, it also needed to mobilize the energy of the Order domain. If too much energy was mobilized in a full-powered attack, the Order domain might become a little dimmer. But now, with just the energy tower and the energy core alone, they could unleash such a level of Order impact, which was already a leap of who knows how many levels. Although using Maple's Order disintegration as a measurement unit seemed to be saying that this attack was useless, no, that was not the case at all. It was just to make it easier to understand. After all, many things in the Void frontline were based on Maple. It was Maple who used himself as a foundation, researched on himself, and then applied his own characteristics to those weapons. For example, the new generation of energy towers and the new generation of the Temple of Origins. Let's not talk about those that had just been built. The previous generation of energy towers, including the current second defense line, were mostly built by him. Therefore, using one of Maple's own representative attacks as a measurement unit to judge the various levels of his creations was the most appropriate. In the Void, the Abyssal Death Shroud Rift took a full 5 minutes to recover. Streaks of scarlet with black tore the Void apart once again, and countless spawns and Abyssal Death Shroud spawns surged out from within. But this time, the fledglings were nowhere to be seen. It seemed that they had suffered too much damage in the previous attack and would not be able to come out for a while. Logically speaking, we should try to unleash the most powerful attack. Yun Nuashing frowned as she pressed on the energy tower. She turned and saw that everyone was shaking their heads like walnuts, but she was still a little reluctant to give up. But we still need to test the power of the new energy tower. Maximum output and whatnot, attack power under overload. No, I don't think there's a need at all. Yes, there's no need for now. Hui waved his hand vigorously, pointing at the wave of Abyssal Death Shroud spawns that had rushed out after much difficulty. You just use a normal attack, and you've already smashed their doors and foundations. They won't be able to recover in less than 5 minutes. Right now, there are only 79 Abyssal Death Shroud rifts at full load. That attack, just now, could have wiped them all out with just a little bit more energy. Under such circumstances, whether it's a full power attack or an overload energy blast, the blast would have caused excessive damage, wouldn't it? There's no way to see any problem at all. Using my own senses to make a rough judgment, that's the only way. That seems to be the case. Yin Nuashing nodded as she listened, but she was still unwilling to give up. Her wandering gaze suddenly shifted away from the swarm of Abyssal Death Shroud spawns in front of her and landed on Hui. This gaze gave Hui and the others 7 or 8 layers of goosebumps. Their hair stood on end, and an extremely terrifying sense of danger surged in their hearts. They saw Yin Nuashing slowly open her mouth, her face pale. Why don't you stand there and let me fire a shot? Hui, everyone, the realm of order suddenly became half silent. Even if thousands of energy torrents exploded around them every second, and the new generation of energy towers let out a roar that shook the void, it could not stop this deathly silence from spreading in the realm of order. Hearing this, everyone's foreheads were sweating crazily, and they tried their best to look forward, not wanting to see the strangeness here. Sui Feng and the others looked sympathetically at Hui Jun, who had turned into a statue in the air, and could not help but gulp. They were wrong. This is not some smoke-free battlefield. This kind of war is actually more dangerous than the front lines charging and breaking through enemy lines. Really, when there are enemies, Brother Feng is definitely the most reliable safeguard. You can see that he can charge alone, and he is a one-man army, and with a raise of his hand, not a single enemy is left behind. But when they collectively move to the battlefield, where there are no enemies, their most dangerous target may be Brother Feng. Well, look at what he just said without trembling or panting. That really is a decision to sacrifice his own teammates without hesitation. Even if Hui Jun is the strongest shield in the realm of order, he may not be able to withstand Brother Feng's whimsical ideas that pop out from time to time. That Feng! Hui Jun finally recovered from the grayish-white statue, and his forehead was already wet with sweat. How about we discuss it again? You see. It's decided then. During the comprehensive testing of the new energy tower, the most important thing to test is the upper and lower limits of its attack power. Now that there are no high-level primeval in the underworld to dance around and let us fire a few shots, we can only test it ourselves. Don't worry, you're our strongest shield. Before we fire, I'll give you a bunch of energy shields. You just have to tank the shield. Yun Oshing slowly removed the new energy core and said in the most indifferent tone that made everyone in the realm of order break out in cold sweat. She then held the new energy core in one hand and said to everyone, hold on for a while longer. I will go back and work on the new energy core for a while. The finished product should be able to start mass production in a day at the latest. Oh, I still have to test it out first. All the warriors of order who were sweating profusely quickly saluted. You have worked hard. Yin Nuoxing nodded and dragged Hui Jun by the back of his collar into the observer space. Hui Jun immediately let out a tragic cry and struggled with all his might. Wah, save me. The observer is going to sacrifice the guardian. Someone come and protect me. Protect me. Jing Yuanji, quickly come and stop your Lord Feng. Help. I have done meritorious deeds for order. I have shed my blood for order. You can't do this to me. I want to go to the battlefield and kill the enemy I had. The words that seemed to be sobbing to the void were abruptly cut off by a transmission. Everyone in the realm of order was sweating profusely. They cupped their hands towards Lord Hui, who had already disappeared, and lamented. You've worked hard too. It was not fun to cooperate with Lord Feng, whose mind was full of madness and destruction. Was it? It seemed that they had not trained hard enough to reach Lord Feng's level. Although they were happy with the appearance of the new energy tower and the new energy core and decided to keep an eye on it for a long time, they suddenly felt sorry for Hui Jun when they thought of the two of them risking their lives in the observer space. They could only put their hands together and pray that Lord Feng would be merciful. Sui Feng pulled his shirt up to dry his sweat and rubbed it on his face. The coldness made him shiver. I suddenly don't want to go to the observer space anymore. What should I do? Sui Feng thought for a moment and said calmly, Go and fight for the Fortress of Origin. But that's still in the observer space. Sui Feng glanced at her brother, who was scared out of his wits. She reached out and pulled him by the ear. A man should be responsible. Now is not the time to rest. Ouch, 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 ouch. It's not about being responsible. What if Hui Jun can't hold on? Sui Feng thought of the scene where they would be the next after Hui Jun fell. He suddenly felt cold sweat and goosebumps. Brother Lei frowned for a moment and helplessly spread his hands. He patted Sui Feng's shoulder and said, Let's go. Let's go back and give Hui Jun 2 layers of shields. Maybe if he can hold on, we will be fine. Sui Feng hurriedly said, What if he can't hold on? He didn't manage to hold on. Brother Lei crossed his arms and took a deep breath. Then let's give him a stick of incense in advance. In a few days, he will come out of the spiritual temple as a hero. Sui Feng was speechless. Oh, and burn an incense for yourself. Now that Hui Jun has fallen, it should be about time for us to go to the spiritual temple. Sui Feng was speechless. Were they already thinking that they were going to die in the observer space? Jing Yuanji and I Ching laughed dryly as they watched them go to the observer space. Sui Feng and the others were walking unsteadily. Because of what Feng had said, they probably didn't want to go near the observer space for the time being. They didn't want to accidentally bump into Feng and Hui Jun and break the material and suddenly be dragged to the battlefield. When Sui Feng and the others returned to the observer space with a strange awareness, a huge torrent of energy suddenly swept past them. When the torrent of energy passed by them, they heard a miserable scream. What a guy, this voice, this decibel. Hui Jun's boyish tenor voice was forced to become a soprano. Clang! The explosion of the energy from the second-level energy pagoda had only just reached the entrance, and the shockwave was like a storm that blew them to the side. The sea of energy below had exploded into a 10,000 zhang deep crater. In short, the commotion from this thing was too big. Even if Hui Jun had to bear it alone, it would probably be, just one person facing an army of 10,000 people. They felt that this comparison was too accurate. Little brother Feng was an army by himself. Now that he was bombarding Hui Jun with an energy tower by himself, wasn't that the same as, 10,000 little brother Feng pinning Hui Jun to the ground and beating him up? The torrent of energy continued to erupt for a full 10 seconds. During this time, the torrent of energy in front of them released 3 or 4 more bursts of energy. Just the bursts of energy alone were about 1/5 of the power of the attack released at the front lines. Then was this attack considered a full power attack? It's not considered a full power attack. I haven't used all the energy in one go, but it's about there. I was worried that Hui Jun wouldn't be able to bear the power of a full power attack, so I planned to do it step by step. Now, it seems that I worried too much. Yin Nuoxing said to Sui Feng and the others who came to her side. She bent her finger and knocked on the energy tower in front of them. Want to try? Sui Feng and the others shook their heads firmly. In an instant, Yin Nuoxing seemed to see 3 or 4 heads overlapping each other. I'll pass. Sui Feng looked at Hui Jun, who was smoking in the distance. It seemed that Hui Jun's defense was overloaded. He swallowed hard and said, I think that if this attack hits, I might die. Yin Nuoxing blinked and said, What are you thinking? I said that I wanted you to try out the attack. I wanted you to tell me what you think. Hui, who was still struggling on the other side, shivered when he heard Feng's words. He hurriedly teleported to Feng. His entire body was char-black and was emitting thick smoke. He didn't care about his sorry appearance and cried out to Feng with tears in his eyes. Burp. Stop for a moment. You can't do this. I've been forced to be cannon fodder for a long. Burp. At least let me rest for a while. Cough. Do you dare to see for yourself how big this thing's attack is? Do you dare? Do you dare? Do you dare? Yin Nuoxing glanced at him, and with a wave of his hand, a colorful energy pasted on Huey's face like the wind, like a storm. Just now, he was in a sorry state as if he had been edified in the coal mine for a few eras. But in a split second, he changed back to the image of a bright boy, looking smooth and tidy, and even the corner of his clothes was not torn. Stop fooling around. Why are you pretending to be pitiful? Yin Nuoxing rolled her eyes at him. You don't even use your full power when you're using your shield. That attack just now did enough damage to you. I'll gather my troops and go to the underworld immediately. There's no need to prepare the sea of energy. I don't even need the energy source. I don't even need that many energy towers. 10,000 of them will be enough. This Sui Feng and the others looked at Hui Jun, who was still alive and kicking. Their brains short-circuited for a while, and it took them a few seconds to react. They thought to themselves, after all, this is the strongest shield in the world of order. This is a guy who has a natural talent for defense. He hasn't broken through to a high-level premier yet, but Hui Jun's defense has definitely entered that realm. If the energy tower that didn't use its full power just now could break through Hui Jun's defense and cause enough damage, well, then they could indeed go to the underworld immediately. With 10,000 energy towers of such power, under Feng's precise control and unknown degree of energy utilization, they could almost pin a peak premier in the void and beat him up. But that wasn't the case. Although the new generation of energy towers was powerful, they were still just basic, mass-produced weapons of order. It was just that Hui Jun was a little careless just now. Yun Nuoxing glanced at Hui Jun from the corner of her eyes as she fiddled with the energy core that she had just dismantled. She kept muttering, "Seriously, we're fighting against time to seriously study the power of the energy tower. This thing in our hands is the foundation of our attack on the underworld in the future. This isn't our daily leisure time activity, nor is it a holiday. We're not doing this because we have nothing better to do. You and I both know that this is war. War. If you pat your chest and say, 'I can adjust the energy core very well and further enhance its power,' then I'll let you fire the cannon and I'll be the target. If you say we'll fight for 100 years, then I'll fight for 100 years until I die. If it weren't for the fact that the high-level premier of the underworld are hiding in the observer space, I wouldn't have to look for targets in the observer space. None of the targets in the front line are strong enough. The gap between high-level premier is as huge as the creation of the primordial realm. If the energy tower that we find in the end is only a little bit weaker, who will be able to reason with you? Who will reason with you? Who will listen to you? The underworld? The other side will only flood the world of order with a blast of chaos. That's their reason. Looking at the void, the only unchangeable truth in this world is the energy held in one's hand. Truth can only be told at the appropriate time to those who are pressed to the ground and have ears and brains. What I want to do is to punch the truth into their heads. I don't need them to hear it. I just need them to know it. For this, I've used everything I can get my hands on. I'm just short of completely dismantling myself and throwing myself into the creation of order. All of this is so that when the time comes, I can make my fist hurt a little. It would be best if I can hit them until they can't move in the void. By then, I can slowly squat down on the ground and talk to those idiots. Yun Nuoxing further adjusted the energy core and engraved enough sacred runes of origin on it. She patted its smooth and solid surface and hung it on the energy tower. She crossed her arms and looked at Hui with an unusually serious expression. Now is the time for us to check the basic power of the future battle. It's not the time to scratch our heads and study the relic of origin. Either we cooperate well, or if you feel that it's too much, I'll take it to the other side of the rift to test its power. If I don't handle this thing well, I'll keep doing it until it's stretched to its limit. The atmosphere was a little quiet. Brother Maple would occasionally become serious. It made them a little uncomfortable. They always thought that they had a good grasp of his personality after spending 5 years together. Well, now it seems that they were still lacking in familiarity with the details. For example, at this moment, they felt the pressure of the gods, which they had not felt for a long time. It was the uncompromising and serious manner that the gods revealed when they talked about the war between order and chaos. It was an uncompromising and serious manner that would not tolerate jokes. There was even a little anger. That serious manner even made them straighten up subconsciously, lowering their heads slightly as if they were about to obey orders. When they realized it, they were shocked. Hui grinned, scratched his head, and said apologetically, "Okay, I won't joke around." Chapter 1881. Afterwards, the atmosphere suddenly became serious. Hui Jun also stopped being crazy and mischievous. Perhaps he was frightened by little Brother Feng's sudden change in aura. Let alone Hui Jun, they were also frightened. It was as if the aura released by the gods had made them stiffen in an instant. They didn't dare to breathe loudly or interrupt. But as expected, Hui Jun, who wasn't joking around, made them feel a little awkward. He became serious as soon as he said he would. While shaking off any barriers that others put on him, he used his strongest defense. His golden light made him look like a golden statue. While he resisted, he kept shouting for Brother Feng to continue using more strength. "Fire! Why don't you fire at me? Did you not eat, Feng? Fire at me. Hit me in the head. Use the energy tower you built to its limit. Are you afraid of killing me? If you have the ability, come at me. In the name of that origin. This attack doesn't hurt at all. Is that all you've got? Is this the basic power of the void frontline that you spent so much effort to modify? Not fierce enough. Not fierce enough. No strength at all. No damage at all. You want to protect the world of order with such weak energy? Sui Feng and the others were speechless. Hui Jun was indeed the strongest shield in the world of order. After this round of ridicule, they all wanted to touch an energy tower and fire at him. Brother Feng was not anxious at all, as if he was already used to his friend's convulsions. As expected, Hui Jun was still convulsing, but it was a different kind of convulsion. The deafening explosions of energy had been ringing for an hour. The new energy tower had already overcharged its energy in the goddamn gradual process. Every time it unleashed a torrent of energy, the ocean of energy down below would surge for a long time. It would sink tens of thousands of meters and raise enormous waves thousands of kilometers high, as if a storm was surging. After another burst of energy after reaching the limit, Brother Feng stopped the meaningless bombardment and took out the energy core. During this time, he had made several adjustments, and after each adjustment, the energy tower's attack became stronger. However, it was only a slight adjustment to the shell and not a second strengthening. From his expression, perhaps the improvement brought by these adjustments had reached its limit. As expected, with the current energy core, the limit of an energy tower is only to injure or break the defense of an ordinary mid-level yuanshi. Yin Oshing knocked on the energy core that was 100 feet in size. After an hour of continuous bombardment, whether it is the structure of the energy tower or the energy core, the energy is very stable. In terms of the strength of the structure, it can be considered qualified. Sui Feng and the others went over to check for a while. Hui Jun also ran over, wearing a dazzling appearance. As he dispersed the energy on his body, he smiled and said, "How is it? How is it?" They glanced at him, and their eyes twitched, as expected of the strongest shield in the world of order. This was Hui Jun, who was displaying the true power of the shield. After being bombarded for an hour, he was completely fine. If it had been them, well, they might not have really been blasted into the spiritual temple, but at least their bodies would have become tattered. Of course, this was also because little brother Maple did not use his own power. He was purely testing the power of the energy tower. If he used his own power, he would have been able to strengthen the energy tower, but the significance of the test would have been greatly reduced. Yin Nuoxing glanced at him and nodded. At the current stage, it's already at its limit. It needs to be strengthened a second time before it can further increase its strength. As for its range, well, it might be a little difficult to deal with the primeval god of the beginning, who is at the peak of the middle order. Mid-level yuanshi. I'm not particularly clear about your classification, Brother Feng, but this should be a good result, right? Brother Lei waved his hand and said slowly, based on the situation of Node 12 not long ago, 20 new generation energy towers can seriously injure a yuanshi who has just advanced to the higher level without changing the energy core. What if we change the energy core? Yin Nuoxing pondered for a moment. Maybe 7 or 8 would be enough. 20 energy towers were needed before the energy cores were replaced, but only 7 or 8 were needed to replace them. Logically speaking, this is already a multiplication since the combination of energy towers and converged energy attacks are multiplicative and not simply 1 plus 1. Moreover, the energy towers themselves rely on the combination of arrays to attack, which is their core attacking method. Although the later stacking would not maintain the same multiplicative effect, the stacking efficiency would decrease rapidly as the number of energy towers increases. For example, when the number of energy towers reaches 10 million, every 30 energy towers might not be as great as when there are only 5 or 6 energy towers. The relationship is still multiplicative, but the multiplier would decrease as time goes on. If that's the case, Brother Lei crossed his arms and frowned. Will the multiplication weaken to the point that it only has a normal increment effect in the later stages? That's when the accumulation is very late and the number of energy towers is very large. When that time comes, adding another energy tower would be a simple addition of 1. In fact, starting from a scale of 100 million, It's almost a simple addition of 1 plus 1. However, there's still people, and behind every one, there's still an order warrior, so there would still be an increase. That point is still the result of the limits of the energy towers themselves. But that's calculated based on the previous generation of energy towers, the new generation of energy towers. There probably wouldn't be a particularly outrageous number. Yin Nuashing nodded. The Order Warriors could also adjust the power of the energy towers by controlling the energy towers themselves. This was a change that took a lot of effort to make. Firstly, it was to prevent the energy towers that were too high from putting too much of a burden on the Order Warriors. Secondly, it allowed the Order Warriors of any level to increase the power of the energy towers, but the extent of the increase depended on their own situation. What about the peak of a Yuanshi stage? Hui raised his hand and said in a gloomy tone. Yin Nuashing's face twitched. She lowered her head and muttered to herself. Her fingers tugged at her long hair as she showed a distressed expression. I need some time to calculate. We lack information on the standard higher Yuanshi stage, the 7th and 8th level of the Yuanshi stage. We also lack information on the peak of the Yuanshi stage. It is very difficult to calculate blindly. The leap of a large stage in the Yuanshi stage is an astronomical figure, and it is even more so for the peak of the Yuanshi stage after the 9th level. But perhaps, based on the current situation, to deal with the standard higher Yuanshi stage, we would need the cooperation of close to a few nodes. That is, we would need tens of millions of new generation level 2 energy towers. Purely on the scale, without using other methods of enhancement, and without using level 3 energy towers. Sui Feng raised his hand. Then if we use the level 1 energy towers, lacking information, I do not know where the limits of the level 1 energy towers lie. However, I guess that the level 2 and level 3 energy towers would not be less than 10 million, and so on, to deal a blow to the peak of the Yuanshi stage. If we want to ensure that it is effective, set a lower limit. Assuming that the Lord of the Underworld is at the 9th level of the 4th circle, we might need to unite all forces in the Void front line and empty our assets. That is, after the new generation energy towers are fully installed, we would need to empty our assets. Yin Nuashing's pretty face was scrunched up, and smoke was almost coming out her head. What if it's a 7th circle? Yin Nuashing's expression became even more serious. Continue to strengthen with the conditions just now as the foundation. Use all the enhancement methods and transform all the level 3 energy towers into level 2 energy towers. Use the hypothetical level 1 energy tower as the core to construct a ceiling circle. All the energy towers piled up from the outside to the inside will use the level 1 energy tower as the node to gather energy towards the level 1 energy tower at the core. Carry out a total of 9 energy conversions, overlaps, and transformations, and finally gather all the energy in my body. Then, with the chaos as the spearhead and the staff of origin as the weapon, I will unleash the energy in the form of mini void turbulence. Within half a minute, if it is alone, without anyone's help and without any accidents, I will kill it in one strike. Brother Lei's face twitched. Does that mean that it would stand there obediently and let you hit it for half a minute? Yin Nuashing nodded. Yes, this is the most powerful attack that I can perform at the moment. If we drag the realm of gods over, the power of this attack would increase by 2 levels. All of the above needs to be the most perfect situation, and it is almost impossible to achieve. If any of the conditions go wrong, this fantasy would collapse, and it would be meaningless. They could not help but smile bitterly. The Lord of the Underworld was not Hui Jun. It would not stand there stupidly and let them hit it for half a minute. So this statement was indeed, it was indeed impossible to achieve. No, even if it would stand there obediently and let them hit it for half a minute, there were other people in the underworld. How could they be sure that when they hit the Lord of the Underworld, the other underworld people would not rush to their faces and crack open their brains? Unrealistic, do not think too much about it. Seeing that they had given up thinking, Yin Nuashing breathed a sigh of relief and shook her head. It is a headache when there are too many high-level primeval. As individual attacks, they are more flexible than energy towers. When high-level primeval work together, it would greatly increase each other's power, especially when the high-level primeval of the underworld come from the same place. They would have a tacit understanding of each other, and the growth of their combat power would be raised to a terrifying level in reality. Otherwise, they would not have been able to defeat the entire Void frontline with just 20 high-level primeval. Like energy towers, they're not as simple as a combination of individual buffs. Energy towers needed to gather tens of millions of primeval to raise their basic power from the pinnacle of mid-tier to the standard high-level primeval. With the standard high-level primeval as the limit, the subsequent buffs would still need to cross a huge number to catch up to the combat power of high-level primeval. But at this time, after experiencing a series of joint buffs, it would be a little difficult to carry out the next step of buffs. The reduction in the efficiency of the stacking between energy towers made the process of stacking the basic power difficult. One would have to change the route or forcefully stack the power. But that was the same for everyone. Whether it was high-level primeval or energy tower arrays, the gap between each threshold was thousands of times, and it would take a lot of effort to cross it. Under such circumstances, one would either have to develop a way to buff it, or strengthen the thousands of foundations. Seeing that Brother Phone was deep in thought, Sui Qing suddenly whispered, "What if it's the pinnacle of 9 change?" Yin Nuoxing instantly broke her train of thought. Her face twitched. "Surrender. We can't win. Even if we use this as a foundation and detonate 196 types of primeval energy and 2 types of annihilation energy, we still can't win. Unless the primeval energy and annihilation energy in this body are both primeval origins, then we may be able to perish together. But even so, the success rate is still less than 10%. This was indeed a deadly question. The peak state of Yuanshu, regardless of whether it was listening or speaking, it was frightening. Every time they speculated, from 4th circle to 7th circle, all the way to 9th circle, they could see that he was getting more and more rigorous and serious in his deduction. Moreover, the chips he added were getting heavier and heavier each time. Even so, it seemed that reaching 7th circle was already the limit of his limit. Everything I've said so far is just an assumption within an assumption. The truth won't develop as we speculate, and it won't necessarily go as planned by the underworld. Everything is still unknown. There's no need to worry too early. It won't be too late to despair when we can only obtain an unshakable result, even if we use all our strength. Yin Nuoxing sighed deeply and stroked the energy core with his palm. What we need to do now is to make sure that when that moment comes, we can unleash the most extreme of power. We need to be so extreme that when we lose, we can only sigh and say, this is indeed an overwhelming gap that cannot be crossed, and sigh and say, although I have lost, I have no regrets, and not sigh and say, actually, I can still mention it again. That is meaningless. When that time comes, it will be too late to say these words, and everything will be irreversible. It was just so that they did not have an excuse. Even if they knew that they might not be able to cross the overwhelming gap, even if they mentioned it again, no matter what, the defeat this time left them with hope and the illusion that there might have been a chance to turn things around at that time. It was impossible to be lucky. There was no need for such self-deceiving self-righteousness. There was no need for such feelings of regret after the fact. Since they had already agreed to find the only one in the sea of stars that was piled up by billions of mistakes, there was no need for such self-deceiving feelings. What they needed to do was to use all their strength to welcome the arrival of that moment, and then ignite the entire sea of stars and turn it into flames that devoured the entire sea of stars. Well, that was what they said, but to actually do it to such an extent, it was a bit difficult, but they could only try their best. Do you have any ideas for the second strengthening? Hui waved the shield in his hand and grinned at Maple to change the topic. Do you want to fight a few more times? Yin Nuoxing came back to herself from her contemplation and shook her head at him. There's no need to fight for now. I actually have some ideas from the beginning. Well, it's just that after trying it out, I feel that I can continue to adjust it. The strengthening of one's basic strength is a business that will never lose money. Yin Nuoxing looked at the energy core in front of her and narrowed her eyes. It's just that there's still some distance to go before we can reach the limit. How long will it take for the fort of origin to be put together? The sudden change of topic stunned everyone. After thinking about it, they all shifted their gazes to Sui Qing and the girl in white. The latter looked at everyone and calmly said, "The progress is unknown." Well, after 10,000 years, the result of an unknown progress was a bit scary. Yin Nuoxing could only scratch her head in distress when she heard that. This was also an important matter that required time and effort and could not be rushed. The Fort of Origin was related to the second strengthening of the order domain, and it was also aimed at strengthening the basic strength. It was understandable that it would take a little effort. If it's unknown, then so be it. We shouldn't be in a hurry to go there for the time being. Well, anyway, there's still a lot to do right now. Yin Nuoxing sighed. Hui nodded in response and counted with his fingers. The second strengthening of the energy core, the new generation of level 1 energy towers, the energy source, the energy sea, the source law, the origin relic. Why do I feel like there's more and more things to do? It's better to say that there were actually so many troublesome things from the beginning. It's just that as the situation develops further, after the situation changes further with our progress, there are more things to do and deal with. Yin Nuoxing let out a long sigh and shrugged. These topics that needed to be dealt with could only be considered as expanding topics at this time. It was fine to talk about it occasionally, but if they really had to talk about it continuously, it would only hinder the current progress. After taking the new energy core back to the observer space and using it for an hour and carefully adjusting it, Yin Nuoxing began the second stage of adjustment and strengthening. It could be imagined that after the second strengthening, the power of the new energy core would definitely increase by several times. The lower limit would be visible to the naked eye, but as for the upper limit, well, this would have to be tested again and again before the answer could be found. The energy tower and the energy core of the energy tower were two cores in the same set of weapons. Previously, they had used a lot of time to adjust the energy tower because they had to consider the personal factors of the user. If they did not care and only pushed the energy tower's power to the limit, then the level 2 and level 3 energy towers would definitely be stronger. However, there was no way for everyone to use it. Instead, it would reduce the base number of energy towers that could be used. It was not worth the adjustment. At this moment, everyone could use it, and that was the result they wanted. The energy core did not have such concerns. Everyone's operation of the energy tower was only related to the energy tower itself. As another energy source and power core, the Order Warriors did not need to waste effort to control the energy core. They only needed to use their own power to press the energy tower, and the rest would be left to the energy tower and the energy core to coordinate. In short, the energy core had no upper limit. Well, that was not the case. It should be said that there would not be an upper limit because of the user. There would be an upper limit by itself, and that was related to the strength of the energy tower itself. Of course, with their current situation, they shouldn't be able to create an energy core that would cause the new generation of energy towers to explode. That was why he could boldly go ahead with the second strengthening of the energy core. He would strengthen it as much as he could, adjusting it with all his might until it reached its limit. All he had to do was to increase its attack power as much as he could before it reached its limit. Hui and the others saw that Yin Nuoxing was busy. Like before, they left the two girls here to look after a certain person who would disappear if they were not careful. As for them, they had other things to do. No, it was not about the Fort of Origins. Someone else was in charge of the Fort of Origins at the moment, and having a few more people would only increase their speed. What they had to do was something else. After Jing Yun mentioned a function that everyone had forgotten about in the Sanctum of Origins, they started to think about that function. The ability to convert an abandoned energy tower of the previous generation into a powerful trump card. Well, it was true. That was what they were preparing for. Currently, the defensive forces in the realm of order were like this. In terms of scale, the number of new energy towers was less than 10%. The rest were all guarded by the previous generation of energy towers. This created a very strange scene in the realm of order. A row of huge pillars were arranged side by side like a wall, and there were many energy towers around it. But now, the logistics personnel were rushing to familiarize themselves with the creation of the new generation of energy towers. No matter how fast they would still need some time to fill up the huge gap. After all, the new generation of energy towers could not be like the previous generation of energy towers. They could not open dozens of lines at once and build thousands of energy towers at once. They could not do that anymore. Now, they could only focus on building 1 or 2 energy towers at once. Once they were more familiar with the creation of the new generation of energy towers, their speed would increase by 2 to 3 times. However, it was impossible for them to build energy towers at the speed of wrapping dumplings like in the past. Therefore, with the current situation, it would take some time for the previous generation energy towers to be completely decommissioned. At least before they were completely converted into a new generation energy tower, their silhouettes still needed to stand in the realm of order. But even if Hui and the others knew that, they still had to take out the old generation energy towers and melt them. The conventional energy towers that were used to guard the realm of order were basically kept in their pockets, and when they ran out, they would send someone to the logistics department to get as many energy towers as they could. In the past, when the situation was urgent, they did not even have a single energy tower in their pockets. They could only keep an eye on the logistics department at all times, moving out a batch when they came out, and using a batch when they built a batch. The logistics department was irascible, cursing the enemy and cursing their own people. While they were cursing, the front line was fighting to their heart's content. That was the result of the logistics department's painstaking effort and vomiting blood to rush the production. Now, as Maple had mentioned, every node had a considerable amount of energy towers as backup forces. The Order warriors in the realm of order had a portion of energy towers in their pockets, while the Temple of Origins in the realm of order had another portion. Under such circumstances, all of the energy towers were stored in reserve, just in case they were needed, especially to deal with some fellows who suddenly appeared. That was the backup force. This portion of energy was kept by the logistics department. So, how many energy towers of the previous generation are there? Hui and the others came to the logistics department of Node 0. Looking at the diligent I Ching standing in front of them, Huey's face twitched. Little Ching, aren't you guarding the realm of order? I Ching raised his hand and scratched his cheek. That's right. Then why are you here? Because of work. Huey's face twitched. Based on his understanding of the young man, he asked, "Tell me, how many tasks did you undertake in Node 0? I Ching made an ah sound, scratching his head and counting with his fingers. Arrangements for the Void Patrol Squad, receiving and distributing express deliveries, 100 logistics matters, management and personnel mobilization of the frontline world, arrangements and future plans for the frontline world. Just say that you're involved in most of the matters in the Void frontline." Hui said. Everyone was speechless. The young man was also a model worker, directly undertaking many matters big and small in the Void frontline. I Ching laughed dryly and scratched his head. More or less. Ahem, Lord Hui, are you here to deal with the energy towers of the previous generation? We've skipped the topic. Hui coughed softly and nodded. There are other uses for them, allowing the buddies who were supposed to be used to guard the realm of order to be put to final use. Currently, there shouldn't be much use for guarding the realm of order, right? Currently, the number of energy towers of the new generation is increasing, and they are beginning to fully take over the defense and attack of the realm of order. The old generation energy towers are only used to fill up the areas that have not been completely covered by the power of the new generation energy towers. In the current situation, the new generation energy towers have taken over 70% of the power of the realm of order, and the remaining 30% is the function of the old generation energy towers. I Ching's body swayed as he held his chin and muttered, "With the amount that everyone has in the Origin Temple storage, there shouldn't be any need for backup forces in the short term, even if the old generation energy towers are no longer being manufactured. The only pressing issue is, the problem of the energy cores. The new generation energy towers are rapidly consuming the energy cores of the previous generation. Even when the production of the new generation energy towers is hastened, logistics has not given up on the matter of the energy cores. Once there is no supply, the power of the energy towers would drop by a huge chunk. Don't worry about the new energy cores. Maple will be ready in a day, and logistics can act when the time comes. Furthermore, the new energy core structure is more powerful and would not be frequently consumed or replaced. Hui nodded and muttered to himself for a moment, before exchanging glances with Brother Lei and the others. Brother Lei nodded. How about this? We won't deal with the old generation energy cores for now, and we'll move out all the old generation energy towers in reserve. Before that, get everyone to stuff their pockets. After all, this is a clearance process, and we don't want to suddenly find that there isn't enough stock in the middle of it. That's already prepared, so there's no need to worry. I Ching shook his head, a little worried. But are we moving all the old generation energy towers in the front line into the observer dimension? The accumulated weight is quite a lot. Everyone's heart suddenly thumped, and Hui gulped. How much? I Ching thought for a moment. About 5 quadrillion? Everyone was speechless. Lunacy, this is a complete lunacy. Which reserve force could accumulate to such magnitude? Are they planning to drown an elite primeval in the underworld with energy towers when he suddenly appears? Chapter 1882. In the war between order and chaos, if one disregarded all the factors and pinched all the details to death, it would just be a war in the end. In the mortal world, perhaps it would be a war between two large countries. They would spend several years to prepare, gather their forces, and charge into the fray. They would fight back and forth for 4 to 5 years on a small piece of land. Some of them would even drag their unlucky neighbors into this waltz and further expand the flames of war. When it was over, one side would surrender and the other would clean up. After the battle on the stage was over, the other side would move onto the stage. If they didn't surrender, then they would just fight to the death. In the course of the war, other than being busy with increasing the number of troops, they would also be busy with military matters. They couldn't possibly order the troops and generals to charge onto the battlefield with wooden sticks and bricks while shouting slogans. A savior from the heavens should at least be accompanied by the best sword in the entire village, right? I digress. He wanted to talk about military matters. Yes, military matters. In the mortal world, a war would take 4 to 5 years to prepare, fight, and deal with the aftermath for more than 10 years. It was more or less over. But now, if the battlefield continued to expand and be pulled into the void, into the only designated and grandest war between order and chaos in the Yuan realm, it would be called endless. The war had been going on here for almost 400 eras, and it was still not over. Moreover, it was obvious that the war would continue in the future. I digress again. He wanted to talk about military matters. This time, he had to focus on the topic. This war between order and chaos was endless. Both sides were risking their lives to increase their strength. The world of order was unlike the underworld, which represented chaos. Chaos usually liked to use energy derivatives to fight against them. Yep, he was referring to the abyssal death mist derivatives, abyssal death mist constructs, chaos constructs, and chaos aggregates. In short, these energy derivatives were cheap, convenient, and quick puppets. They just had to sit the back and point at the front, and billions of energy derivatives would roar and charge at the world of order. It didn't matter how many of them died, since they could be replenished. The energy of the void was endless. Creating a few energy derivatives was not difficult, nor were there any restrictions. On the other hand, the world of order basically had the order life forms charge at the front lines to fight. But of course, they couldn't be like the order life forms in AI Hongyun's void domain. They couldn't really roll up their sleeves and charge at the front lines without doing anything. They couldn't afford to waste their energy, nor could they count every single order warrior as a consumable. So they set up void seals, let the order domain spread, and set up energy towers to bombard the enemy. Occasionally, some hot-blooded order warriors would charge at the front lines with cold weapons and accidentally die. But the Soul Temple would have them quickly revive and die again. What? You want to ask why the world of order didn't have similar energy derivatives? Actually, it wasn't that there weren't any. Some of the order warriors actually had their own habits of using energy derivatives to assist in battle. They were all transformed from their own energy. For example, that little girl from Maple's family. That platinum-haired girl who released spirit puffs and spirit flashes. That really beautiful girl, Dao Tian. That's her name again. Her spiritual world was the grandest and most complete of all the order life forms he had seen. Her spiritual power was also terrifyingly vast. That little girl also walked a path that was different from the others. Those ships with powerful cannons that she took out from her spiritual world were a type of energy derivative. She would stay at the rear and command the battlefield energetically, letting her own soldiers charge at the front lines. Apart from this little girl, there were others. Well, at any rate, there were indeed some order warriors at the front lines of the void who used this method to fight. For them, it was a different method of attack. That's right. For them, this was an individual method of attack. It was another method of attack that was difficult to replicate. It was difficult for everyone to use this method of attack. As for the reason why they couldn't use energy derivatives on a large scale, I think I've talked about it a long time ago. However, the explanation wasn't very complete, so I'll talk about it again. To put it simply, most of us don't have a method of attack similar to energy derivatives. Most of us just charge at the front lines with weapons in hand. At most, we have an energy tower. It's a matter of habit and the path we've taken. If we were to force ourselves to take this path, according to the situation in the underworld, we don't have a chaos concept body strung together. There's no way we could form a system to mass-produce energy derivatives. This is a matter of technology. Even if you strung me or Maple together, there's no way we could use us as the core to create energy derivatives. That's because the core alone is enough. We don't have the technology, and I don't know how they came up with so many tricks. Hui shrugged helplessly and shook his head. If you want to research it now, we'll have to take another path. Another path that requires us to learn new skills. That sounds quite troublesome, but was there any research in this area in your era? Suifeng scratched his chin and pondered. Now that you mention it, I think there was, then, but it's just an abandoned path. Brother Lei's words shattered Hui Jun's fantasy. Looking at Hui Jun's gloomy face, Brother Lei shrugged and said, "It was abandoned at the end of the development. It didn't mean that it was abandoned at the beginning. At that time, there were actually energy derivatives of order stepping onto the battlefield. It was just that it was abandoned at the end. Why was that? It's because the energy derivatives of order are generally not of a high enough level." Jing Yun, who had just finished checking the inventory with I Ching, immediately interrupted when she heard the conversation. Seeing that everyone had turned to look at her, she shrugged and continued. The concept of chaos soldiers are all created by themselves. You can treat it as a type of talent, and it's an instinctive talent. It's quite powerful. The chaos soldiers created from this are stronger than the energy derivatives created by the life forms of order in all aspects. The difference is not small when fighting on the battlefield, because the energy derivatives are a huge mass of energy. Under the overwhelming difference in level, the little bit of defensive power hidden within would be easily torn apart by the chaos soldiers. Then, they would be transformed by the chaos soldiers. In the end, it would become something like our energy soldiers pick up bricks against us. Hui Jun's brain twitched. It's a bit like slaves being roared at by the other side and instantly turning against their slave masters. Everyone was speechless. This did seem to be the case. F*CK. They suddenly understood why the path of energy derivatives had been abandoned. Jingyan shook her head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It's easy to understand, but someone did not give up and kept on researching. I remember that it took a few years, and in the end, everyone pricked up their ears. In the end, Jing Yun's expression was solemn. 3 to 4 chaos concept bodies raided and even moved the house away. Then, 12 hours later, another node in the same void battlefield was flooded by that person's energy spawn, strengthened chaos, and the speed at which that node fell almost broke the record of another node destroyed by 12 chaos concept bodies. Everyone, this was great. Everything that they had worked so hard on for most of their lives had been snatched away with a single swipe of a claw. She didn't even hesitate in the slightest. After she was done, she even threw the energy derivative that Gangsu had turned over to smash the walls of Order's house. What a sad story. After that, almost no one bothered with creating energy derivatives anymore. Truthfully speaking, this path isn't much for the life forms of Order. If you really want to do this, I remember that there's a heavenly god of origin who's good at this, but he can only barely fight to a draw with a chaos concept entity. And this is only a special case among the heavenly gods of origin. Based on the heavenly god of origin's characteristics as the source of order, he's 1/147 of the heavenly gods of origin's characteristics. Everyone nodded vigorously. So, it can be said that there's only one person in 147 who is good at creating energy derivatives in the world of order. Now, looking at the void of chaos. This is the racial talent of the concept entity of chaos. Their average talent is maxed out. How can they compare? Jing Yun continued to spread her hands with a half-helpless and half-heartless expression. Using one's weakness against another's strength was simply asking for trouble. Suifeng covered his face with a bitter smile. And it's rare to find someone who is far from the concept entity of chaos in terms of level. The gap is overwhelming in every aspect. That's why this path was abandoned. It doesn't work at all. Jing Yun continued to shrug. Her shoulders were shaking. After that, there was a commander-in-chief of the central node of order. It's equivalent to the commander-in-chief of our node now. He later gave an order. From now on, anyone who is researching energy derivatives in the region is to be thrown to the continent of origins and buried there. When the heavenly god of origins has the time, he will recite the 10,000 beliefs of order to him. Everyone smiled bitterly. That was a mandatory ban. There was no helping it. The talents of order did not lie in that area. If they were to force their way through this path, there was no other outcome other than to kill themselves. In the current situation, because the enemy is not a chaos concept entity, and in a situation where the power of order and chaos is almost equal, we can use energy derivatives. But, well, as you know, the talents have all been cleansed. It's a little too late to refine the talents now. It would be better if we started to refine the talents 5 years ago, but now. Jing Yun, scratch your head. In this period where everyone could charge at any time, even if there was a prefix of preparation time, it would still be unavoidable. It was better not to cause any trouble and distract them. It was better to just focus on the things that needed to be done. As for the energy derivatives that they used to attack, at this point in time, there was no need to correct them. They could do whatever they wanted. When they were evenly matched, and with the support of the realm of order, they would not be so easily angered by the abyssal death mist. Compared to energy derivatives, order creations would basically be dismantled. It was rare for order creations to fall into the hands of the enemy and be used against them, except for the underworld. The Horn of Order was personally bestowed by the heavenly gods of origins. Who would have thought that they would turn around and volunteer to join the chaotic void? In any case, because this path was easy to take, the world of order embarked on this path of using order creations as the foundation to attack and defend. This is also a trace left behind from that era. By using order creations to strengthen the power of the order warriors and to aid in their attack and defense, they were used to fight against this war. Jing Yun, scratch your head. If you think about it carefully, the heavenly gods of origins seem to have taken this path from the very beginning. Look, the large pile of order creations and relics of the heavenly gods of origins left behind in the void are all evidence and traces of them taking this path. Hui shrugged. The Staff of Origin was created during the chaotic era. From that time onwards, they had already been researching the path of order creations. They did not take the path left behind by their ancestors properly. They did not continue to expand, and instead chose to take another path. Look, now they are in trouble. They have fought more battles than we have breathed. How could they not understand us? Everyone smiled wryly. That was indeed the case. Jingyun waved her hand. So, what were you guys talking about just now? Why did you suddenly talk about this abandoned path? Just now, we were talking about how the 5 quadrillion energy towers at the front line of the void were piled up in an insane manner. We turned his head and said, "How did you guys stray so far from the topic?" Energy towers. When we talked about that, we thought about armaments. Armaments are power, and when we talked about power, we thought about the power of order. Then, we thought about the main force on the other side, which is energy derivatives. So, we were wondering why we don't have such things, and why the ones charging at us are all beings of order. We snapped his fingers. That's pretty much how we made the connection. You really know how to stray from the topic. Now, it's all the way to the chaotic void. It was fortunate that the topic returned to its original position after running a lap around the void. They had come to logistics to handle the stockpiled energy towers of the previous generation. Even if they heard an unexpected number, 5 quadrillion energy towers. Such a weighty number, it would be quite exciting to condense and fuse them all into a single one. But 5 quadrillion. How insane must they have been to gather such a huge number over the years? If we do the conversion, there should be more than 2 quadrillion in stock on average, right? Sui Feng scratched his head as he calculated the number, his heart thumping. Then, if we count all the stock, wouldn't it be even more? If we count all. Jingyun's face twitched, and she said with an inexplicable expression, that number would be doubled. Everyone was speechless. As expected, it was not just the reserves. The Temple of Origins and everyone's pockets were also extremely huge. As expected of logistics, it was precisely because they were too powerful that they could only be logistics, and continuing to charge at the front lines would only be robbing their comrades, EXP for nothing. Brother Lei suddenly paused. Wait a minute. If the energy towers are already at this level, wouldn't the energy cores of the previous generation be? Jingyun covered her face and turned 90 degrees. They're all 10 times the energy towers, whether it is the reserves or the total. Everyone was speechless. It was no longer as simple as being powerful. It was basically insane. As expected, the most insane in the front lines of the void were those in logistics. Throw aside the observer, who was out of the norm, that one could not join the battle. They knew that the consumption rate of energy cores was faster than the energy towers, but no matter how fast it was, there was no need to store it at a ratio of 10 to 1. Was there? As expected, everyone in the front lines of the void had a phobia of insufficient firepower, and they had every reason to suspect that it was a terminal illness passed down from top to bottom. Every single one of them had followed a certain observer to push peerless and open fire to their limits. And this one had even been infected with the phobia of severely insufficient combat ability. If the front lines were to continue developing at this rate, it was only a matter of time before they would collapse the void and dismantle the chaos concept body. That did not sound like a bad thing. Then it's fine. Forget it, let them be. They would first collect all the energy towers of the previous generation stored in the void front lines. Well, that would take some time, and little Qing Zi would probably be busy for a while since it was 5 quadrillion energy towers. After all, they would have to toss about in the observer space after he was done collecting them. Although there was a grand plan of converting waste into a large equivalent as for how to execute it. Well, they might not be very good at it. Did they have to ask Maple for help again? Or force him to increase his workload? Wouldn't he be strung up in the observer space and blasted for 2 hours? There was, however, a new shrine of origins in the observer space that had been molded over the last few days. With a pure energy tower of the previous generation as the basis, it was almost time to get started. The creation's resonance function of the sanctum of origins is ready, and the energy has been accumulated beforehand. It didn't need much energy in the first place, so it should be enough now. Brother, you've handled it perfectly, preserving all the functions of the previous sanctum of origins, even this function that we've forgotten. Jingyan clapped her hands as she walked into the core hall. Brother Maple did not mess around with the core. He only added a layer of shell and a few layers of clothes, and the basic function would definitely be preserved. Sui Feng looked up at the core hall, where the origin energy that flowed in the hall was very active, with the origin mark on the wall flickering in dazzling radiance. Why do I feel that the core hall is not much different from creation? Brother Lei glanced at him. Are you going to change the style and add some art to it? For this kind of universal toy, you just have to dig a space and stuff the most important power of order and the power of laws into it. Why would you need to pay attention to anything else? Do you want to draw a picture on your family's weapon? Well, Sui Feng scratched his head. That makes sense. Then here's the problem. Hui blushed with shame as he turned his head, holding the structure root that had no shell or other restrictions in front of him. What should we do with this thing? Jingyan coughed dryly. Actually, don't think that way. If I give Maple another job for no reason, he will eat me raw without dipping any sauce in it. Huey's face was filled with melancholy. But if you insist on using my full attack as a trump card, everyone looked worried. No one in the Void frontline knew the concept of maximizing the attack power as well as the Observer, not to mention that they were going to convert the energy tower into a huge amount of energy in one go. This was a proper trump card, and if they were to deal with it, they would probably only be able to increase its effectiveness by 1 to 200%. That might sound good, but if the Observer were to do it, the effect would be increased to 10,000%, breaking through the sky. By then, it would be a small trump card for a big trump card, and a big trump card for a super big one. Hui waved his hand. Anyway, before little Qingzi delivers the package, let's slowly explore for a while. Just treat it as laying a foundation in advance. Put on a few shells to stabilize the structure's root and strengthen the structure's strength. We can still do this. When little Qingzi delivers the package, we will, Master Hui, come and get the package. I Ching shouted at the top of his lungs through the soul transmission. Hui, just, meow, meow, meow. Everyone. Hui Jun was scared out of his wits. But wasn't I Ching's speed a little too fast? They had only been back for an hour, and had just finished dealing with the Origin Sanctum. Just as they were about to act, they had already packed up all the energy towers in the Void frontline. Wasn't it supposed to be 5 quadrillion? Jing Yun threw a set of coordinates, and the space beside her immediately opened up. I Ching slipped out of the space, wiped his sweat, and rummaged in his pocket for a while before taking out a miniature version of the world orb, which was about the size of a head. Phew! I've collected it all. It's all in here. Sui Feng gaped. Since when did you make a miniature version of the world orb? It was 2 days ago, right? The people in the logistics department were studying the new creation space and had an inspiration. No. It was an inspiration from a long time ago. But because of the new creation space, this inspiration became a reality. I Ching grinned. Its special feature is that it has 6 times the capacity of a normal world orb and a miniature shape, making it easy to carry around. Hui took a deep breath and frowned. It feels like an enlarged version of a spatial storage device. It's just that it has jumped out of the framework of a device. The capacity of a traditional device is limited by its own structure, and it can't expand much when converted into a creation of order. Of course, the main thing is that it doesn't particularly need to store too many things, so it hasn't been studied in that aspect. Even if you really need a larger capacity, you can just open up a portable space in your own soul and throw in a world orb. That's right. But normally, putting a world orb in the soul space will take up part of the capacity of the soul and spirit. I Ching nodded. Normally, the more complicated a world orb is, the more space it will take up. Even if we are mid-tier yuan sure, the structural strength of the world orb itself has to keep up with our current realm. After all, it's usually used for unusual operations, and the structural strength of a normal world orb can't withstand the torment. So we have to make special ones and take up space. That's why a person can only stuff 40 to 50 world orbs in their soul space and portable space before it's full. It's fine to store ordinary things and those world orbs don't have such a high structural strength. But what they're stuffing into them are all dangerous things, such as origin relics, energy towers, energy cores, and their own energy. So, the boxes used to store things need to be sturdy enough, which is why the structural strength of the world orbs is stretched to a very high level. The structural strength is very important. It's because the world orbs need to be of the same strength that we can't stuff too many of them in. Sui Feng spread his hands and his face stiffened. Except for Brother Feng. He's a special case. Everyone smiled bitterly. They still remembered the day when the staff of Origin was assembled, the spectacular scene of thousands of world light orbs rising from the bottom of the sea of energy. Moreover, each world light orb was a special model, and each of them contained a huge amount of Origin energy, more than enough to drown them. Could it be that these miniaturized world orbs can be? Brother Lei looked at I Ching and suddenly had a guess. I Ching smiled mysteriously. It takes up a lot less space in the soul and spirit. To put it bluntly, if we use these world orbs, we can stuff more world orbs into our soul space and portable space. That's good. But at the moment, we can only create world orbs that don't require too much structural strength. As for world orbs with more complicated structures and higher specifications, it's not quite possible. At the moment, we're still researching it. I Ching scratched his head and laughed dryly. Everyone, all right, it's a small project that we can look forward to in the future. If the number of world orbs a person could carry could be directly increased, their energy capacity would be improved. To put it bluntly, it's directly equivalent to an increase in combat ability. Still, from the looks of things, they could only create world orbs that fit the standard of mid-tier primeval. Even world orbs with special specifications of the same tier might not work. There's still some way to go. I'm getting off topic. I Ching coughed dryly. I'll tell you more about the new world orbs later if you're interested, Lord Hui. I'm just here to deliver the goods. Gently placing the world orb the size of a head in Huey's hand, I Ching bowed and nodded. All backup energy towers in the Void frontline are stored here. So how did you get all done so quickly? Hui shuddered and quickly recovered. I thought you'd be busy for at least a day. It's mainly because I've been busy clearing out the inventory, so the backup inventory was all released. Coincidentally, the small world orbs were completed, so they were all stuffed back in here. I just ran around and took all the inventory from all the nodes and that's it. I Ching was an honest child, and so he reported honestly, leaving Hui and the others stunned. So you've been clearing out the backup reserve from the start. I Ching stuck his tongue out and whispered. If you were a little later, they might have blown them all up. Everyone in the Void frontline is crazy. It's not just for show. Chapter 1883. The matter of energy towers being converted into high yield actually had to be told from quite a long time ago. At that time, the Void frontline had just been blown up, and the rebuilt frontline was lacking in resources and in chaos. There was not even a spiritual temple on the frontline, and the warriors of the realm of gods could still return to the spiritual temple in the realm of gods if they were killed. As for the other warriors of order, each one of them was a vanishing star. That was when the war between order and chaos officially began. The terrible conditions and the terrible situation of being preempted by the enemy made it very difficult to gain a foothold. Every time a place was stabilized, there would be an uproar on the other side before the order domain could be established. And just as the terrible situation was stabilized, the place that was just stabilized would be besieged by a large number of abyssal death mist spawns, and the domain was on the verge of shattering. I think the people here will fall asleep if you keep chanting. Sui Feng raised his hand and mercilessly cut off Hui Jun's chanting before pointing to the side. Brother Lei was already hugging his arms and looking up with his mouth wide open, about to fall asleep. Ahem. To put it simply, that was when the front line had just been blown up and was waiting to be rebuilt. There was a lack of resources, no logistics or anything else, and the number of energy towers was not even enough to equip a node. No, there was not even node back then, and the void seal was still being rebuilt. Hui Jun coughed dryly and sighed. That was when the void front line of this generation was first established. For the first time, our people felt the awkward situation of not having enough energy towers. They could not form a formation or stabilize the situation, and each energy tower could only be used sparingly. It was also at that time that the change happened. After the structural foundation of the energy tower became unstable, we had to throw it into the void to be destroyed. Once it was in the void, we threw it into the deeper void. At that time, we even took the initiative to destroy it. Later, it seemed like, I forgot who it was. It should be someone that Lord Green had brought along. His hand trembled, and he accidentally threw an out-of-control energy tower toward the abyssal death mist manifestation. Then he was held back by the other abyssal death mist manifestations, and could only watch as that energy tower became increasingly irritable, surrounded by countless manifestations, and then came the grand fireworks, which changed the way to deal with the energy towers. Sui Feng let out a long "oh." It just so happened that there were few energy towers. At that time, after discovering that they could be used in this way, I took advantage of the situation and threw the exhausted energy towers out as fireworks. He scratched his head and said, "In the past, I used to throw it into the void to prevent it from hitting the flowers and plants. Who would have thought that it would become a completely habitual action? Even during a battle, I would have to divert a little of my attention to deal with it. At that time, I was beaten up so badly that my brain didn't understand it at all. So, I didn't think of it at first." Sui Feng couldn't help but sigh. That was when the void front line was still in a difficult situation, and not everyone had gone mad. At that time, it must have taken a lot of effort to rebuild the void front line. Brother Lei, who had just woken up, sighed. It wasn't easy. Just thinking about rebuilding the domain of order while being besieged by chaos is hard enough. Oh, it's okay. We touched his face. We spent an hour fighting each other to rebuild the void sealing circle. The remaining 2 to 3 days were spent on rebuilding the realm of order. Perhaps because it was an emergency, the underworld did not advance on a large scale. So when we built the void sealing circle and the realm of order, they stopped. Everyone, Sui Feng, wait, what happened to the difficult time? What happened to the most difficult beginning? Was it over in an hour? Hui put his hands on his hips and said righteously, "At that time, Maple stayed in the realm of the gods and couldn't come to the front line to help rebuild. I think it was very difficult. Very difficult. So difficult that we almost emptied all the energy towers." Well, if Brother Maple wasn't at the front line, then it did sound a little difficult. Ahem, I'm off topic again. Hui coughed softly. The number of times he went off topic had obviously increased recently. Let's continue to deal with the structural core. It should be about time. In the past, when the energy tower was about to be used up, the law of construction was already trembling. When it was thrown out, it would use its own law of construction to trigger a chaotic energy explosion for the last time. Because it was always in the realm of order, the so-called residual energy was actually just a saying. Unless the realm collapsed, there would be no shortage of energy in the realm of order. Therefore, when it was thrown out, it would still be in a state of full energy. It was equivalent to throwing out a bomb that was full of energy and had an unstable law of construction. What they had to do now was to convert the energy towers that were still in a stable state into a bomb, and then tie the 5 quadrillion bombs together. If possible, they naturally hoped to unleash more power than 5 quadrillion, such as poking them a little or something. Now, they were just thinking about how to poke them. Sometimes, thoughts are always beautiful. Sui Feng scratched his head and looked to the side. The source of the structure was small just a moment ago, but now, it looked like a huge lump. It was already 30 meters in size. What did we do to make the source of the structure look like this? We covered his face and turned away. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know anything. What tragic sight. Jingyun sighed, face-palming. Like I said, in my opinion, we should just give the origin structure a shell to strengthen it, and then send it to the little brother. Aren't you usually reasonable and heartless? Why are you being so stubborn all of a sudden? Isn't it because we covered his face with both hands, indicating that he was ashamed? Seeing how Maple is tormenting himself, I occasionally want to relieve some of his pressure or something. Of course, idiot, paratrooper, naive, and brainless like me probably can't relieve pressure, but at least I won't add to it. Everyone was speechless. Although they did not attach so many adjectives to themselves, the truth was that they probably couldn't do anything to help Maple. It wasn't that they were stupid, but that they really couldn't help when Maple was tormenting himself. Although they were people from that era, it was a pity that they didn't stand high enough. One of them had stood high enough, but was beaten back by the tides of chaos. All in all, more than 100 of them combined weren't as useful as Maple. It was pardonable that they couldn't help with that part of the matter, but this energy tower was a product of this era, and it wasn't something that was difficult to handle. It wasn't an origin relic, nor was it a chaos creation. This was the structural core of the last generation's order creation that was about to be retired, and they couldn't even handle it. Well, it wasn't that they couldn't do anything about it. It was just that when they saw Maple's crazy look when he was tormenting these things, they felt that when they were busy, TSK, it didn't seem like they had enough energy. They felt like they couldn't handle it properly. It was a typical feeling of seeing others working too hard, but when it happened to them, they didn't seem to be working hard at all. They suddenly understood why Hui Jun was so shy. If the situation happened to them, it would be very embarrassing. Although they were used to it after 5 years, but I'm sorry. Jing Yun waved her hand, picked up the structural core, and strode out. Now is the time for order and war to prepare for war. When it comes to such a crucial issue, all of your self-righteous personal feelings should be thrown aside. I'm not afraid of death. I'll do it. Sometimes you just need to brace yourself for some things. You don't even need to brace yourself for some things. You just need to brace yourself for it. Just go straight for the face. Hui, Sui Foam, and the others were shocked. While they were thinking about losing face and losing their dignity, Jing Yun directly shouted and rushed out. At this moment, her image was simply glorious, like a savior who had descended from the heavens. There was no vulgar interest, no personal desire, and only the great goal of destroying the underworld in her heart. So this is the reason why you rushed at my face with that messy thing on your head? Yin Nuoxing looked at the huge energy core in front of him with a blank face. The internal structure of the energy core was still stable, but it was obvious that a lot of things that should not be in it had been pressed into it. The feeling it gave him was no less than hollowing out a pumpkin and stuffing a whole watermelon into it to make a nondescript southwest melon. Understood. I've thought about it for a while now. Well, I've been thinking for a few minutes about how to deal with the replaced part of the energy tower. The energy and rules contained in the tower itself are nothing special. Although the quantity is large, the total amount of energy is not large. Throwing it into the sea of energy and melting it will only fill up the energy. The effect may not be as good as 1 or 2 energy sources. Converting it into a trump card is a good idea. It's worth a try. Yin Nuoxing nodded as he spoke. He then looked at Jing Yun, who was bowing a 90-degree angle with an expression of sacrificing one's life for justice. Who else but me, and bravely sacrificing one's life for justice. Tilting his head, he asked, "But your strange expression and inexplicable. What are you trying to say to me?" And Yin Nuoxing bent back and looked at Hui and the others who were a few hundred meters away. "Why are you hiding so far away? You're all very strange today. Did you all eat something wrong?" Hui and the others scratched their heads and walked forward, looking embarrassed. Yin Nuoxing's pretty face was about to wrinkle. Why did these people look so awkward today? It felt as if they had collectively done something bad and were shrinking their necks and waiting to be scolded by their parents. But he was not a parent. Did you all smash the void front line? Or did you all pick up something strange from somewhere? Or did you all suddenly feel danger? That's not right. If you were in life-threatening danger, you would probably be shouting by now. You wouldn't be so quiet. None of those. Jing Yin turned his head. Hui covered his face. It's about some kind of recyclable garbage. We blindly worked for half a day to make a garbage and feel ashamed. Yin Nuashing looked at him, then looked at Brother Lei and Sui Foam. The two of them looked up at the sky together. A drop of cold sweat hung on their cheeks. He looked at them and sighed, then turned his gaze to Sui Qing. Sui Qing blinked her blue starry eyes at him. She turned her head slightly and whispered, "I don't dare to speak up when I did something wrong." The girl in white turned her head indifferently. Same. Yin Nuashing. Either they had eaten something wrong today, or he had damaged his brain. He always felt that something was wrong with everything he saw. He carefully looked at the structural core in front of him. Well, it had been many years since he last saw the structural core of the energy tower. Originally, the structural core of the energy tower was the root of the structure. God knows what kind of thoughts they used to make it look like this. They even enlarged it by more than 5 times. Well, it's not bad. Although it looks a little ugly and a little big, there's no problem with it. It's probably not far from the limit you can reach. If you don't neglect the remaining little bit, you'll have to pay a price to make up for it. You just have to replace it with the energy of the origin relic and the power of the rules. Patting this energy core, Yun Nuashing glanced at Hui and the others, who suddenly heaved a sigh of relief and felt that the value of life had suddenly been realized. He couldn't help but flatten his mouth and frown. So they were worried that this thing would really be turned into a waste? That shouldn't be the case. After all, they were a bunch of mid-tier primeval. It was not that exaggerated. What they could not reach was his limit, not theirs. By his standards, it could be improved by a few notches. Hui and the others had done their best to reach the limit they could reach. It was just that they were limited by the material and could not reach his standard limit. But this thing was really a little ugly. It just looked almost like that. When did he become a spokesman for such a strange metaphor? The materialized rule force was in the shape of a chain. Of course, 10,000 years ago, someone nagged in his ear that he was carried there to be sacrificed. He felt that that was the main reason why he was affected. As he thought about it, Yin Nuashing rolled his eyes. He raised his hand and slapped the structural core into the sea of energy. The sound of rolling waves stunned everyone. Then he said, "Let the power of the origin relic adjust it. When it's done, it will be as powerful as you wish. But you were wrong from the start. It's a one-use thing. If you use the structural core, it will become its own limit." Limit of the structural core? Hui scratched his head and leaned forward. Yin Nuashing nodded. The construct core itself is a stable energy source. It's important for stability and durability, and can be recycled until it's worn out. If it's a one-off weapon that can only launch one attack, there's no need for the construct core, just the construct core. If we have to use the construct core, well, we can use 2 to 3 minutes of charging before we launch, but the commotion is too great and will be easily discovered. That's right, the commotion is too great. 5,000 trillion bombs tied together. A single charge is enough to drain the entire void. The underworld would have reacted before such a huge commotion, and when that happens, we'll go for wool and come home shorn, and it won't be fun if they see our huge yield and detonate it instead. Furthermore, a bomb of this magnitude needs quite a bit of time to charge, so this charging function can be said to be useless. We can consider a small yield, but that's meaningless. It's better to use the new generation of energy towers for a combined blast. I'll remove the shell. The thing inside is fine, and it'll be strengthened by the energy of the origin relic and the origin precepts. When that's done, you can use the Shrine of Origins to deal with the 5 trillion energy towers. Yeah, that's it. You've come just in time. The new energy core is done. If there's no problem with another test, we can throw it to logistics. Hui and the others could not react after a series of words. Moreover, the last sentence was clearly more important, causing them to throw away the recyclable garbage they had personally created. That's it. It hasn't even been a day. Oh, because the Shrine of Origins has been strengthened twice before, the method used this time is more or less the same. I have experience, which is why the time taken is shorter than I thought. Yin Nuashing nodded and raised his hand at the sea of energy. The surging sea of energy instantly protruded into an arch that everyone was familiar with. They subconsciously tried to guess the size of the ball he had made, and were stunned when they looked at it. The energy core did seem to be a size larger, but it was probably not by much and was at most 2,000 feet in size. It was a little different from what they had imagined, and according to the habits and hobbies of an observer, it should have appeared 10 times its original size. There was nothing much to say about its appearance. It was spherical and looked like an energy crystal, but it was a size fatter. Other than that, they could clearly feel that the power of laws and energy had increased by 2 or 3 levels. However, the specific effect and the difference between it and the energy core before the second strengthening still needed to be tested. It was actually quite troublesome to accept a new weapon, especially when there were no targets at the front line, and they could only use their own people as targets. Sensing the change in the atmosphere, Hui did not interrupt or act inappropriately this time. Without saying a word, he mobilized his own energy and unleashed his guardian mode, which he had not done for a long time. His body was shining with golden light as he patted the holy sword in his hand on the large shield and shouted to Maple, "Maple, do you want to give it a try?" Yinhuashing thought for a moment and slowly stood up and took out the level 2 energy pagoda. "All right, do you want to give it a try? Use your own power." Hui took the initiative to ask, which startled Sui Feng and the others. Hui Jun was a little powerful today, and he had chosen to increase the difficulty. To be honest, they were not afraid of the level 2 energy pagoda's cannon fire, but they were afraid that Maple would suddenly use his own power. That'll be different. There's no need to test it, and it's not worth it. Yun Nuashing shook her head. If you want to test it, you should test it after taking out the level 1 energy pagoda. Right now, it's only a level 2 energy pagoda. What should be tested is the energy pagoda's own power, not mine. When a new energy core sat on the energy pagoda's ring, the origin mark of the entire energy pagoda flashed and lit up with a bright light. Everyone was stunned. Wait a minute, when the energy core was first installed, it did not seem to have such a reaction. This seemed a little exaggerated. How big was this movement? Huey's heart thumped when he saw this movement. He felt that there was a purple-black rune flashing crazily on the top of his head, and a huge danger word was written in the void, and it was still flashing nonstop. Prepare to defend with all your might. I'm going to release the energy pagoda's power directly, Yin Nuashing reminded, nodding slightly as if giving an order. Then she pressed her hand on the energy pagoda. The moment a huge amount of energy surged crazily, everyone felt that the void was moving crazily. A violent suction force opened its claws towards the void, and even though it was rapidly absorbing the void's energy, the sea of energy in the observer space seemed to be affected. Huge waves surged, and the entire energy pagoda and energy core turned into a flowing, colorful crystal pillar in an instant, as if it had turned into a star field. Countless colors surged from the inside of the pillar to the energy core at the top of the pagoda. The surging colors showed everyone how fast it was condensing energy. Wait. Isn't this a little too ridiculous? This isn't right. This isn't right. Did you use your own power? Hui exclaimed, and a huge sense of danger rose in his heart. However, at this time, he suddenly felt a little conflicted, looking at the way the energy was condensing. Looking at this energy, although the movement was very big and dangerous, it didn't seem to be to the point where he had to use the guardian barrier or sacred barrier. However, if he didn't use it, it seemed a little long. Dozens of overlapping arrays appeared in front of the energy core, and that vast and mighty energy also exploded after a short moment. A huge energy ring poured out all the energy, and this violent energy broke through the overlapping arrays. The explosive energy instantly increased in power, and Hui turned pale with fright. He hurriedly smashed the guardian barrier into the void, and before he could shout, the energy flood that covered a huge area swallowed him. Sui Feng and the others, who were covering their ears and closing their eyes, grimaced in pain. They thought that there would be an even louder explosion, but this time there was no deafening noise, which made them stunned for a moment. They couldn't care less about Hui Jun, who was still being washed away by the energy flood, and hurriedly put down their hands and looked at Feng. Jing Yun, not noisy? You've settled it? I used the energy core to help adjust the energy tower. Yin Nuoshing nodded. Before I dealt with the energy core, I checked. The reason why there was such a loud explosion is probably because, it seems like the energy tower's speed of condensing energy is not compatible with the speed of attack. In short, the energy tower is not fully charged in 6 seconds. 6 seconds is actually the normal charging speed of an attack, and it can attack in 6 seconds. However, the energy inside the tower is still not fully charged, and it is still condensing energy at a very high speed, but the process of condensing energy did not stop during the attack. In the end, the energy released by the attack only reached the energy core, and the energy that was still condensing inside the energy tower and in the void was not in place. And when the energy tower ignited all the energy, it exploded halfway. This is not just a matter of noise, but also affects the power of the energy tower itself. As he spoke, he patted the energy tower that still looked like an energy crystal pillar. Through the energy core, the energy tower accelerates the speed of condensing energy again, and it will be fine if the speed of condensing energy is faster than the standard attack speed. At the same time, it also increases the attack power of the energy tower a little. This part of the increase in attack power is additional. After all, it is the adjustment of the energy tower itself through the energy core, and the degree of the second strengthening of the energy core itself is calculated separately. See, you kept nodding as she listened. The advantage of dual core processing is that if one side is lacking, the other side will make up for it. This last would occasionally say normal things. C suddenly pulled Little Star's hand. So, Little Star, does the other core in your stomach have such an effect? Yin Nuoshing. He was wrong. This girl's words still gave him a headache. Jingyan pinched her chin and pondered. If that's the case, that energy will even affect the structure of the energy tower itself. After all, it blew up halfway. It's just that the structure of the energy tower is too strong, so we didn't notice it. Yes, this hidden danger will not be noticed now. But when the fight really starts, when the energy towers collectively enter the overload mode, they will attack and condense energy at a faster speed. Before the gap between the two is filled, the hidden danger will be magnified many times. Yin Nuoshing nodded. Fortunately, we noticed it early. Fortunately, you idiot. The energy torrent lasted for 10 seconds before it stopped. Everyone turned their heads and saw Hui crawling out with hot white smoke all over his body. When he came out again, he was almost in a state of full defense. Hui exhaled a scorching breath and put the guardian shield aside. He grimaced and waved his hand as he complained. Ouch, it's so hot. You didn't even tell me what the level of this attack is. Didn't I tell you to go all out at the beginning? Accordingly, I directly used the overload mode. Yin Nuoshing rolled her eyes at him and waved her hand. How's the attack? It's okay. Hui pulled his lapel to fan himself. The attack power of the energy tower now, I used my strongest defense. Well, combined with 10 energy tower cannons, I think I can break through the defense in 10 minutes. The attack can't be interrupted in the middle, including the primeval domain, that another 20 minutes. Well, maybe 30 minutes. What about gathering the energy towers of the entire node for the attack? Hui was silent for a second. He looked at Feng worriedly. Feng, you don't have to beat around the bush if you want to kill me. Everyone covered their faces with a bitter smile. All the energy towers of the node would gather and blast the high-tier primeval domain. Chapter 1884. The new generation of energy towers would only be considered complete after the new generation of energy cores of the same level was announced to be completed. Out of caution, they did not immediately celebrate, nor did they immediately throw it into the logistics department for mass production. Instead, they continued to release attacks in the observer space for dozens of minutes to conduct a more thorough examination. The idea was thorough, but the actual examination could only be done shallowly on the surface, such as testing the limit of the attack power try to increase the speed of energy condensation and attack, maintaining the overload mode for a long time, and so on. As usual, Yin Nuashing also tested again after every attack, but this process only repeated 4 or 5 times before it was over. He also felt that there was nothing left to test, and the only thing left was the most straightforward energy attacks. For example, how long would the overload charging mode affect the structural stability of the energy tower or the energy core? To what extent would the overload charging mode cause the energy tower or the energy core to collapse? To what extent could the energy tower or the energy core explode when combined with his own strength? To what extent would the energy tower be able to condense energy faster by transforming it into an energy condensation form? To what extent would the power of the other energy tower or the energy tower that was responsible for launching the attack be enhanced, and so on? Speaking of which, before the new energy core is produced, transforming the energy tower into an energy condensation form would not produce any noise during the energy condensation process. Well, I think I'm spouting nonsense. The noise should be from the energy tower launching the attack. Yin Nuashing said as he slapped himself. Everyone smiled bitterly. Their mouths occasionally moved faster than their brains, and they would certainly say the wrong thing. The aforementioned aspects could not be tested in the observer space and needed to be tested on the battlefield. Well, they were just a little worried that there was no way to test it even if they moved it to the front line. After all, the front line was not facing much pressure at the moment, and it was not as simple as not much pressure. They had all moved their realm of order to the front of the Death Mist Rift and killed those bastards inside. If 1/5 of a new generation energy tower was already worse than before, it would definitely be worse in the future. Indeed, it sounds like there is no chance for the new generation energy tower to be unleashed to its limits. Brother Lei rubbed his forehead in distress as he listened. Judging from the results of the experiment on the new generation of energy towers, if we don't overload it for 1,000 hours, we probably won't be able to cause any instability in its structural core. It should be the same for the energy core. After all, the structural core has been greatly strengthened, and its structural strength is on a completely different level from the previous generation of energy towers. Even if both are mass-produced weapons, the difference in strength between the two is too great. Yin Nuashing breathed a sigh of relief. The core structure of the previous energy tower was just ordinary energy and laws. The new energy tower used the origin energy and laws of origin from the origin relic, which was more than 10 times stronger than the origin energy and laws of origin he used himself. 1,000 hours. I don't have the chance to overload it for more than 1,000 hours. Hui scratched his head in frustration. Now it's just a normal level of energy outburst. Before the new energy core is installed, it can already block the door of the death mist and bombard it indiscriminately. To change it, it's simply even worse, the girl in white said. This is really a very distressing and sad story. New weapons must be tested to their limits. They only knew half of it before they were brought to the battlefield. It was still okay now. When there was not much pressure, everything was fine and easy to handle. But when it came to the point where everything had to be pushed to the limit, then it would be a matter of not being able to test the other half. If they could not figure out what the other half would be like when the day of the final battle came, let's do this. He snapped his fingers and nodded, making a decision. There are some guys in the Void frontline who specialize in defense. I know all of them. Call them over to help, and get the other guys who specialize in offense to come over as well. Let the two groups of people perform. Everyone was speechless. Since there was no target, they had to let their own people be the targets. But bombarding for 1,000 hours. Su Weifeng's forehead was sweating. Are you sure they won't die? Hey, the Soul Temple is in Node 0. They just have to crawl back up after they die. Hui gave a thumbs up and smiled brightly. I'll tell them that this is a battle for order. Ahem. All right, don't look at me like that. It's as if I'm doing something inhumane. Hui coughed dryly in the face of everyone's extremely weird gazes. In fact, I already had this idea half an era ago when the Underworld offensive had slowed down. At that time, the idea was just to let some of them train at the rear instead of the front line. Well, the training target was the lads from the front line. But now, they can be put to other use. I believe that instead of training the new recruits from the rear day and night, they would prefer to fight with their own people of the same level. Probably. Yin glanced at him and nodded without thinking for long. Do it. That's the only thing we can do now. Hui nodded and opened a soul message. Little Qingzi. Go to the training area and gather a group of lads. Tell them it's a special mission. It's going to take a long time, and they can fight to their heart's content. They don't have to go to the front line or wander the void, but there might be casualties. But with the Soul Temple, it's not a problem, right? Half of them will be in charge of carrying shields, and the other half will be in charge of beating. As for the time, let's set it 3 days later. Everyone could not help but sigh in their hearts. Little Qingzi, the model worker of the front line, is on call and knows everything. From fighting the enemy, wandering the void, to managing a region and leading the training of troops, he can do everything. Except for the half that could not be tested, they were quite satisfied with the new generation of energy towers that had taken shape. High-strength structure, increased attack power by God knows how many levels, fast charging, efficient attack, and majestic shape, as well as mass-produced weapons, could almost announce that the foundation of the Void frontline was firmly rooted in the Void. As for whether there was a way to continue to strengthen it, there was definitely still a way, but it would depend on the degree of development in the future. Before the day of the final battle arrived, they would continue to strengthen the power of the world of order until there was no way to go any further. After the announcement of the new energy core, Yin Nuoxing brought it to the space of creation in the Observer's dimension. The logistics personnel that Yuan Ji had mobilized were now busy day and night. Just like them, they handed the new energy core to the space of creation to record its situation. Next, they would enter the serious stage of mass production. With 2 types of energy towers and energy cores being manufactured together, it would not take a long time to arm the entire Void frontline. After all, there are more than 1,900 new space of creation. So how many nodes are there in our frontline? Yin Nuoxing suddenly asked a fatal question. Hui shuddered and his face turned pale. My dear King Lord Observer, you don't even remember what our frontline looks like? How can I not remember? Yin Nuoxing snorted and waved her hand. I didn't even remember. Everyone was speechless. That was good. This was the righteous Feng clan speaking. I've already told you, I'm a warrior. Of course, it's not impossible for you to say that I'm a brute who only cares about blasting the void. You're in charge of the internal affairs. Little Qing and Yuan Ji are also in charge. Anyway, I don't care. I know myself very well. I can't care about this kind of thing. The only thing I can suggest is how to strengthen our forces and how to open up the enemy's skull. Yin Nuoxing crossed her arms and said righteously. Jing Yun covered her face with a headache. But this is not the kind of troublesome internal affairs of the mortal realm. The internal affairs of the Void frontline are only military affairs. They don't have to care about daily food and drink. Everyone is a superior being who can survive by drinking a cup of wine in the Void, right? Yin Nuoxing scratched her head and stuck her tongue out. Seems like it. Then I'll start remembering now. So how many nodes are there in our front line again? We looked as if he could not do anything about it. There are a total of 1,300 nodes in our front line. 1,300 nodes. 1,300 nodes. Got it? Yin Nuoxing yelped and turned to look at the creation space. There are a total of 1,950 nodes in the creation space. That is to say, 650 nodes are empty. There are 120 nodes in the observer space. I've used 20 to create energy sources, while the remaining 100 are used to create energy sources in the Sanctum of Origins. What about the other 530 nodes? Those are scattered among the nodes. Node 0 has 2 creations between it. After all, even if the underworld has slowed down their attacks, the forces left to deal with each node are not exactly equal. Some places need more forces to guard the realm of order, and the replacement has to be carried out faster. Hui said as he pulled his hair. Because the battle could not be stopped, it was easy for variables to occur when the defensive forces were being replaced. The nodes that were being attacked by the underworld naturally had to be replaced first to prevent a troublemaker from suddenly appearing and ruining things. The creation space in the creation space is creating the dedicated sanctum of origins and the new generation of energy towers. Now that there's an additional energy core, well, it has to be rearranged. We side with a headache. The matter of mass production was troublesome, especially when the foundation was being replaced. To put it bluntly, there were too many things to deal with. Even if the processing capacity was maxed out, it was not enough. Yin Nuashing scratched her head. There's no need to rearrange. Let some of the frontline logistics people go to the new sanctum of origins and the new creation space to create the energy core. Huh? Hui was stunned. The creation space is already working on those two things. How can there be so much time? Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes. Tell that to the logistics people. They'll definitely understand faster than you. Huey's face twisted like a bitter gourd. After a while, a thought flashed in the back of his head. Don't tell me they still have time after taking on this part of the task. Yin Nuashing was a little surprised to see him being quick-witted for a moment. She nodded gently. The creation space itself is creating the dedicated sanctum of origins. This part uses half of its functions. The remaining half, if it continues to be busy, it can still create a new generation of energy towers. But if you let people assist it, it can also create energy cores for you in addition to building energy towers, and the processing speed is not slow. Otherwise, why would the creation space be thrown to logistics? There's no need for logistics. It's the same for the new sanctum of origins. So for now, with the task of creating a new energy core, well, it's full. It's completely full. He scratched his head and pointed in front of him. Then what about this part of the creation space? Full speed. First, there's enough dedicated sanctum of origins. When these 100 creation spaces have people to help, the speed of creating dedicated sanctum of origins will be 4 to 5 times faster than other creation spaces with more tasks. But if the new creation space carries out the task of creating energy sources, one energy core would almost fill it up. As for the remaining part, because there's not much left, it could only be thrown in to speed things up. If someone helps, they can use that little bit to make another space. But this energy source is used to race against time, and there's no need to deal with other things to slow things down. It's the same for the new sanctum of origins. The energy source takes up most of the production capacity, but it's also possible to race against time to create energy cores. We can even slow down the production of energy sources a little. After all, the energy source that races against time is already being created here. Then it seems that the energy source is still a little more overbearing. After all, it's something left by the god of origins. We could not help but sigh, and then his brain suddenly twitched as if it was natural. So what's actually being made now? I'm almost confused. Seems like there's too many production lines. You want a conclusion, don't you? Well, there are only a few creations involved. The new generation energy tower, the energy core, the dedicated temple of origin, and the energy source. There are only 4 of them. Can't you tell them apart? Yin Nuashing scratched his head. I wouldn't be troubled if you had a separate production line for each creation, but Huey's face twitched a few times. But they're basically intersecting with each other. It's a bit of a headache. Huh? Yin Nuashing scratched her head. After all, there was a sequence to the creation of these creations. After they were created, they would begin to perform their tasks immediately. And with the current situation, the importance of the tasks in each place was the same, which made it a little confusing. The creation space in the front line is not making energy sources, but taking over the other 3. As for the new sanctum of origins in the front line, it was originally making energy sources, but now it has an additional task of making energy cores. The latter is used to buy time for the front line, so that the earlier the energy towers are installed, the earlier they can rest assured. The reason why the task of making energy sources is not canceled is that the energy sources are already in the process of being made, and they can't just collapse and use them to make something else. Then the remaining ones are the creation space in the observer space and the creation sanctum. 20 of the new creation space are focused on processing energy sources, and the rest are focused on making dedicated sanctum of origins. As for the creation sanctum, it does not make the two things used for fighting, but takes over the other two. When the number of dedicated sanctum of origins is enough, it will turn to making new sanctum of origins. Hui heard this and immediately shouted through the soul transmission. Little Qing Zi, did you hear that? That's it. So don't beat around the bush. The creation space in the front line does not make energy sources. The sanctum of origins is only responsible for energy sources and energy cores. The rest has nothing to do with you. Everyone do your job, so stop arguing. Everyone. So he was asking the others. After the tasks became more numerous, the arrangements began to become messy. In any case, this matter had been settled. After a period of time, they could see the Void frontline being equipped with a new generation of energy towers, and their strength would increase visibly. At present, the underworld was still peaceful. Qing Jun's enemy had been slacking for nearly 100 days, and there was still no movement. It was said that he could no longer bear the loneliness and carried the energy towers in a high-profile rotation through every node, leaving behind a large clanging sound of explosions as he killed a large number of enemies and scared his own people before slipping away. Good heavens, running to the location of other nodes to have a meal while fighting and running at the same time, it felt more like he was there to play than to really practice. But the other party was Qing Jun, so maybe he was really there to practice. Forget it, let's not bother with him. When the energy cores were ready, let him go and get a few first. It was fine if he ran around to fight, but it was not good if he suddenly fired a shot from the side and scared his own people. Apart from that, the Void Patrol Party was also regularly collecting Void concept fragments. Maple was still diligent in handling his own sea of energy, and they were also paying attention to the modification of the previous generation's energy towers. As the new generation's energy towers became more powerful, the previous generation's energy towers and energy cores were also being collected bit by bit. In 20 days at the latest, there would be no previous generation's energy towers and energy cores on the front lines. Everyone was only keeping a small portion of the previous generation's energy towers in their pockets for emergencies, while using new weapons at other times. The people whom Maple had Greeny assemble for the duel were already in position, and everyone was very excited after he explained the whole story. They immediately began to duel in a special layer of the observer space, with both sides going all out, with one side showing no regard for their own safety and the other just fighting to the death. There should be no problem. Well, there should be. I Ching looked at the indiscriminate bombardment in front of him and laughed dryly. After all, this is a special mission to test the limits of a new energy tower. Everyone is working very hard. Let's just treat it as a training exercise. Back then, we fought for more than 1,000 hours. Now, everyone is slowly calming down from their crazed state. Huey's entire body shuddered, and he looked at him in surprise. You really think so? Well, they've calmed down a little. Just a little. I Ching smiled bitterly. To be able to move the realm of order to the front of the Death Fog Rift and blast the enemy's door. Who would believe that they had calmed down a little? Either way, the matter of the energy towers had come to an end for the time being. They had entered a phase that required long-term attention, which was why they had to put aside for now. Now, they had to return to the matter of the Ford of Origins and the Primal Rule. Two more big problems. Needless to say, the Ford of Origins was still in a dilemma. As for the Primal Rule, Maple had finally finished with the new Shrine of Origins and the new energy tower. Before the Sea of Energy recovered to the extent of 5 epochs worth of effort, he had no intention of further tinkering with the new energy tower. He was talking about the Tier 1 energy tower, which meant that it was the second phase of long-term attention. The Tier 1 energy tower had yet to be decided, and the matter was not over yet. It was just a temporary pause. Looking at Maple, he was determined to dismantle the Staff of Origins to study the Tier 1 energy tower. That would have to wait until the sea of energy recovered, which was why he could only wait. Between the Ford of Origins and the primal rule, he himself could not decide which was more important, so he divided it according to time. It would take 500 years for the first energy source to be installed. Spending 500 years on the Ford of Origins would probably not yield any special progress, but the primal rule had already been made. If he worked on it for the next 500 years, perhaps his progress would be zero or even negative progress. That was a dilemma. But since it was Maple's own decision, he must have his own reasons for it. Let's just leave him be and have CU and Blue Phoenix keep an eye on that idiot. Oh, right. He also mentioned the topic to Ming and Shuang, who had come out for an activity. Now that the four girls were keeping an eye on him, he probably wouldn't accidentally disappear. As far as the current situation was concerned, everything was stable, and he preferred it this way. He could be at ease and busy with his work. Everyone had a clear division of labor, and no trouble. Although he was as busy as a spinning top every day, there would not be any big or small problems that would suddenly occur. Although he knew that this temporary peace was just the storm accumulating strength, at least he could enjoy the peace at the moment. It was much better to be at peace than to have someone raise a loudspeaker and shout in his ear like a storm when he was working. So, do we need to fast forward time? Hui asked Sui Feng and the others, tossing the broken pieces of the Ford of Origins in his hand. Sui Feng looked up and mused for a moment. Everything is on track for now. The modification of the Void frontline has to be done step by step, and we've just taken a step forward. The next thing we need to do would probably be 500 years later. It's not like we can't fast forward it. That's not right. Hui Jun, didn't you arrange for some people to perform in the special space of the observer space? Why don't we wait for a few dozen days to see the results? TCH, I'll have little Qingzi check that part of the results when the time comes. We'll have him tell us about the situation the next time we come out. Sui Feng thought about it and put down the broken pieces in his hand. That's true. Then there's the matter of the energy towers of the previous generation. Hui paused, scratching his head and mumbling in hindsight. I almost forgot about that. Counting the time, there should be only a few days left. In a few more days, the new generation of energy towers would be fully installed on the front line. When that happens, we won't need the previous generation of energy towers, and they can retire in peace. Old friends who have seen us through the whole phase. We breathed a long sigh. If it weren't for such turbulence and chaos, we might have put in some effort to decorate them. But in times like this, we can only send them on their last journey and carry out their last mission. Sui Feng fiddled with the broken pieces in his hand and looked up at him. Everyone keeps some in their pockets in case of emergency. We have some in our pockets, too. You don't have to make it sound so tragic. Huey's mouth twitched as he looked at the colorful planes and then at the fragments that had been pieced together into an asteroid belt. Rolling his eyes at the sky was not enough to express his feelings. How long is the Fortress of Origin going to keep fighting? I feel that it will take at least 1,000,000 years. You don't say. It might really take 1,000,000 years. Brother Lei came over with a huge broken piece in his hand. Sui Feng, pull out the broken piece you're stepping on. These two pieces are one piece. It's a creation of the gods. We don't know the complete structure and rules. It's already very lucky to be able to put it back together when it's still intact. It's worth it even if it takes more time. I really can't see the end of it. Hui gave a long sigh, touched the fragment in his hand, and murmured, if only there were more middle-level original beginning. No, high-level original beginning. Ask everyone to come and help. It should be soon. I think it's going to be a fight soon. After all, the more people there are, the messier it is. Sui Feng joked. It was true that the more people there were, the faster the fight would be. But to put together the Fortress of Origin, one must at least be mid-tier 5th or 6th heavens of the primeval 5th heavens or 4th heavens. At present, only the commander-in-chief of the node and the Order warriors in the Divine Realm had such a level. The others were still lacking, and the task of guarding the front line was equally important. TCH, don't be equally important. Look at how lazy the underworld is now. When the new generation of energy towers is fully installed, I'll get everyone in my family, and those who have reached the standard to help. Just leave the commander-in-chief and some of the commander-in-chief behind. If this thing dilly-dally, I can't sit still for 1,000,000 years. Hui rolled his eyes. Just keep a certain level of force. I don't believe they would dare to stop. Shut up. Shut up. Everyone hurriedly shouted. What would happen if you said that? Cough, cough. Hui almost choked from the roar. Anyway, that's what I mean. If they're speeding up their sneaky business, we have to do the same. Phone. Is that okay? This arrangement should work, right? Once the new generation of energy towers is fully installed, it would definitely be able to withstand a lot of pressure. Yin Nuoxing looked up and glanced at him through the soul transmission. Although it's a little radical, phew, it's fine. It's a good thing that the Fortress of Origin is quickly assembled. After all, we still have to work on the Staff of Origin. After all, it would take years even if we have more people. Then it's settled. Hui nodded. Gathering his breath in his dantian, he looked up and shouted, Little Qingzi. Everyone was speechless. Little Qingzi could be elected as the first model worker of the Void frontline. Every trivial matter, big or small, was left to him. Chapter 1885. 5 quadrillion was a huge number just from the sound of it. The energy towers of this scale were arranged neatly in front of them. It was as if a dense white forest had been planted in the sea of stars. Occasionally, a few mutated trees would grow bigger and brighter in color. They looked highly poisonous. Just looking at it from the periphery was enough to make one's eyes a little dizzy. The rows were neat and uniform. From the front, it seemed like there was only one row in front of one's eyes. Looking at it from the side, one couldn't see the end of it. It was so densely packed that if one were to count it with their eyes, they might get dizzy after a few counts. If one were to walk into this forest, they might immediately get lost and lose their sense of direction. Crazy. It's impossible to tell north from south in the first place. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes at a certain crazy guardian and turned to look at the array of energy towers in front of them. The energy towers of the previous generation were all gathered here. They stood there like a forest made of towers. However, the array they formed was so huge that it would not be easy to see the whole picture. As for the number, TSK, it was such a huge number that it would not be easy to count them. It was more or less the same. Bro, Jingyan flew out from the forest of towers and turned around to look at the front with him. The energy cores have been thrown in as well. 10 times the amount, damn. But is it okay to put these two things together? It's fine. Yin Nuoxing nodded. I don't know if you have noticed, but the structural roots of the previous generation energy towers and the energy cores are exactly the same. Jingyan was startled. I really didn't notice it. I'm just a bystander. If it's the same structural root, does that mean that some of the structural roots have some slight differences in activity so that they become two different creations? He stroked his chin and muttered to himself. For example, if 100 people were stuffed into the space ahead, those 100 people would be the foundation of the entire structure. Now, if 40 people were to squat and 60 people were to stand, that would be the energy tower, while 100 people would curl up together and become the energy core. That would be a simple explanation. Although that's what it means. Let some of the structural roots display different characteristics. In terms of priority, let some of the structural roots work first, and the other parts are placed behind. By changing the order of these effects, the same structural roots can create several different creations. Yin Nuoxing's cheeks twitched a few times. That's what you said. It's easy to understand. Easy to understand. Don't mind the details. Jingyan laughed dryly and waved his hand. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and turned to look at the starry sky ahead. It had been a long time since he saw the starry sky. This world used to store things for logistics had also partly evolved into a background, and there was a starry sky. The scenery of billions of stars was his favorite scene, and it had been a long time since he saw it. Occasionally, he might accidentally see it, but he did not really stop to appreciate it, quietly passing by like a gust of wind and disappearing into the distance, not paying attention to everything he saw along the way. Brother Feng, The origin sanctum has been moved here. A huge rift opened in the starry sky, and a majestic sanctum slowly squeezed out of the rift. Sui Feng's voice rang in the soul transmission, waking Yun Nuoxing from his brief moment of leisure. He nodded to Jing Yun and Hui, and walked into the sanctum of origin together. Between the cores, or also known as between creations. It was preferred to call it between creations, but this hall was actually the core of the entire sanctum of origin and was equivalent to an energy core. The structural roots of the previous generation of energy towers were placed in the core. Yin Nuoxing turned to Jing Yun. What's next? How do we use that resonance thing? Let me do that. I'm an old hand. Jing Yun raised the structural roots and walked forward, fiddling with the core between the cores, before suddenly turning his head. Although I'm an old hand. Ahem, you guys better go outside and watch. I haven't used this function for a long time, and it's a little too much to change at once. It won't be fun if I mess it up, so let me know if you see anything wrong. Everyone rolled their eyes in unison. Is this guy even reliable? After spending so much effort, would there be any accidents at the last step? No way, right? Have you guys used this function before? Yin Nuoxing asked Sui Feng and the others as they arrived at the stars outside the sanctum of origin. We haven't, but I've seen others use it. Sui Feng shook his head. When the war between order and chaos broke out, the order defense line was different from the void blockade we use now. The offensive led by the chaos concept bodies was different from the netherworlds. It was not so cautious or neat, and the overall battle was very chaotic. Ahem, to make it easier to talk about the void, a few chaos concept bodies suddenly appeared in the western sector, leading a bunch of minions to attack the order defense line. Then, there were dozens of chaos concept bodies in the southern sector, dozens in the eastern sector, and perhaps none in the northern sector. Then, because we used a lot of forces to defend the northern sector in the last battle, part of our forces were stationed there, and it was a headache. Huey's face twitched. It sounds chaotic. It really was a chaotic battle. You think that's it? No. That's just a rough way of putting it. The truth is that the eastern sector might have been heavily attacked by the chaos concept bodies, with the flames of war igniting in the upper, middle, and lower planes. That's right, you heard it right. Even if the eastern sector was undamaged, the flames of war could still be ignited in the upper, middle, and lower planes. Yin Nuoxing, it was a chaotic battle. Sui Feng grinned and said, at that time, the defensive structures of order were the ones we mentioned countless times before. The Fortress of Origins, the low-level nodes, the battle formations of order, the net of origins and order. Oh, and the Temple of Origins. The Temple of Origins was the most common mid-level node. There were tens of thousands of temples of origins in the defensive line. These large-scale structures of order were all created by Her Eminence, and then handed over to the beings of order. We were directly responsible for the low-level nodes and battle formations of order, which could be mass-produced through the Temple of Origins. As for the rest, well, it was more or less the same as what Brother Maple said before. They were all handled by Her Eminence's great temples. We were responsible for placing them there. We can't create these large-scale creations, which is why the core of the Temple of Origins is used to create and update some of the little things that the beings of order bring. It's just as Jingyan said, we basically don't need those things. Our best weapon is our own origin energy, which is why we've seen others using this function of the Temple of Origins. We'll just watch from the sidelines, or at most go up and help. Sui Feng couldn't help but let out a long sigh and smacked his lips. Perhaps it was because the topic suddenly reminded him of the past. The battles back then were the same as now. They were all carried out around a realm of order, but the difference was that most of our battles back then were carried out in the real world. Now, we're just slapping each other in the void. Hui was startled. Why? Why we have to fight in the real world? Is there something wrong with fighting in the void? Or is there something bad? That's pretty much it, but there are restrictions in every aspect. Brother Lei tilted his head and scratched it. One of the reasons is that most territories of order would spend most of their efforts on world orbs. Their weapons and rules are targeted at the entire world orb, and there are only a few that directly target the void. If we operate in the world orb, it would be convenient to drag our entire family away. Most of the time, we can't just stand in the void and slap each other's mouths as if our lives depended on it, and we won't retreat unless we're in dire straits. Back then, we couldn't sense when we were in dire straits. There could be a chaos concept body suddenly charging out, or a node in front of us suddenly collapsing, and the eruption of chaos would spread from the node to the node we were guarding, hence encountering a chain of impacts. All of these things happen very quickly, and it would be the fastest to drag a world orb with us, using the void to cut off any concept class impacts that we might encounter and avoid destruction. But if it's like the void frontline, Brother Lay looked at Fong and scratched his head. Brother Fong, let me put it bluntly. If a chaos concept body charged to the front line and triggered a concept disintegration class chaos blast, all 1,300 nodes in the void front line would collapse at once, and the collapse might not even last a minute. Yin Nuoxing stared blankly, her eyes bulging. No, that can't be, right? That can't be, can it? The 1,300 nodes in the void front line are connected by a void ceiling circle, right? Sui Feng asked. Yin Nuoxing nodded. That's right. Then that's right. They could set this place ablaze with a single flame, burning the entire void front line from here. A void version of Burning Camp. Ahem. Even if they managed to evade such a destructive attack in a void in time, it would still take a lot of effort to relocate in the void, right? The front line would have to be prepared in advance for each retreat, and if it were just world luminous blobs, they would be able to escape in a second from the moment they discovered them to the moment they retreated, no preparation needed. Yin Nuoxing and Hui were speechless. Surely that wasn't an ability they had trained to escape, was it? We were definitely like that at the time. Brother Lei could not help covering half his face when he saw how stunned the other two were. When we arrived at the void front line, we did not sense any chaos concept body's involvement. While the underworld had the power of the chaos concept body, they clearly could not unleash that concept class power, which is why we did not mention anything about the void front line since it's not important. At the time, we often had a hub of the order defense line being set ablaze because they could not cut off the connection in time, but that was relatively early. Yes, very early. We even participated in the early war. Sui Feng spread his arms. That's just one aspect. As for other aspects, such as the void, well, we could not snatch the chaos concept body's domain in the void, and that would require the gods to act personally. It's also the case of defense, but it's not as easy to defend the void as it is in the real world. As for the chaos concept body, when they invade the void of order, they would not be weakened much, just symbolically a little. Yin Nuoxing was at a loss for words. All right, without the home field advantage, order was too difficult. Anyway, under such circumstances when the gods were not present, it was tacitly agreed that the void was the main battlefield for the chaos concept body, including those infinite chaos spawns. At the time, everyone tacitly agreed that the odds of order entering the void would be reduced by 50%, Siyu said. Siyu said fiercely, our win rate was less than 50% to begin with. Now that it's reduced, won't it become negative? Sui Feng's face twitched. You reacted quickly. So, Yin Nuoxing lowered his head and twirled his bangs with his fingers. The origin of the net of order that covers the entire line of defense, and the meaning of the existence of the net of order, is to forcefully drag the battlefield that should be in the void into the real world. How did you know? Brother Lei was a little surprised. Did the gods tell you? No. When AI Hong Yin was chatting with me, he mentioned the use of this net. He only mentioned part of it. What I said just now was based on some details and knowledge. I made my own guess. Yin Nuoxing shook his head. Guess. All right, as expected of you. Brother Thunder smiled bitterly and nodded. The origin and net of order that is built around the entire defensive line of order does have such an effect. To put it simply, it is a strengthened version of the Void Seal. When we fight, we will be inside the Void Seal. If Chaos wants to fight against order, it must abide by this rule and enter the real world to do battle. Did the chaos concept bodies not think of directly smashing the origin net? Yin Nuashing asked. It's a concept class defense that the gods built with their own power and the void of order. It's immeasurably sturdy, and they must have tried but failed. That's why they could only enter the field set up by order and fight, forcing order to establish a home field advantage. Sui Feng shrugged. Even so, order would still lose to chaos. In your own words, Brother Feng, the only advantage of home field advantage is that you could die with dignity. Hui was speechless. The origin net and order prevents direct combat in the void. Well, to be frank, we could only understand the principle, but not the reason behind it. We don't understand what would make the chaos concept bodies willingly abide by the rule and enter the real world to fight. After all, it's a higher level of knowledge that we can't reach, and we were too busy with the war to think about it. Now, a dozen or 20 years have passed, and we don't have any sample before us, so there's no way we can think about it. Sometimes, even if we accidentally fight in the void, we would avoid a prolonged fight, retreating to the nodes as we fight, and continue to defend with the node's power. With their explanation, Yin Nuashing had a general understanding of the order defense line in the mythological era. The origin net and order guarded the void, while some unknown power lingered in the void of order, forcing the chaos concept bodies to fight. On the other hand, the entire void of order was a defensive line built by the net, with 3 inner and 3 outer circles. It was not a single layer of shields that stood at the front, but a thick defensive line with layers of shields. The defensive line had the Fort of Origins as the central hub, spreading out in all directions like a net, while the Shrine of Origins as the intermediate node was responsible for extending the Fort of Origins' power, building small nets within the net. And this small net was one of the layers of defense. As a whole, Hui was holding up a huge shield in front of him. Behind Hui were tens of thousands of Order warriors holding up thousands of shields of different sizes. Every Order warrior had inherited Hui's defense. Yep, that's how it looked. It had a sense of déjà vu. Under such circumstances, regardless of where the chaos concept bodies wanted to cut into the battlefield, they would have to face the powerful defenses of Order head-on. Powerful defenses, yes. Powerful defenses referred to powerful that could be torn apart, highlighting the invincible power of the chaos concept bodies. It was common knowledge that the power of Order was a bluff. Compared to such defenses, the entire void frontline they had built, well, it was just one big shield, just one shield. At best, it was a ring-shaped perimeter with 1,300 shields stuck to the perimeter, each of them standing on the ring and facing the front, leaving nothing behind. It would not be fun if the void of Order caught on fire, but it was fortunate that there was no fire in the backyard. Come to think of it, what's an Order battle formation? We suddenly remembered the topic. I heard you mention that net along with the Fort of Origins and the Shrine of Origins right in front of us. Leaving aside the lower nodes, there's still the Order battle formation. Let me think about how to put it. Brother Lei crossed his arms and thought for a moment, before glancing at the energy tower ahead. In short, it's a pillar in front, and the strength of the Order warriors within range of the pillar would combine into one. When there are 1,000 of them in the battle formation, each of them would be able to unleash the power of 1,000 men, carrying the pillar and fighting around it. Simple and easy, right? Hui scratched his chin. 1,000 of them dancing and singing around a pillar. Everyone was speechless. That damned destructive power. Sounds like a good thing. Resisting the urge to throw Hui into the void of chaos, Yin Nuashing turned and ignored him, looking at Brother Lei. Is there anything left? That pillar you're talking about. That's just a metaphor. To be honest, it's not a pillar, but a huge crystal of origin energy entangled with a bunch of origin essences. That's the core of the battle formation, and it could resonate and borrow power from the nodes around it. Since the nodes were all over the void of Order at that time, it could be assumed that the battle formation could unleash its corresponding power wherever it went, and the more nodes there were, the more power it could resonate and gain. That's related to the range of the nodes, which means that in that instant, The battle formation's range of gathering power into the void had changed from its own range to the range of 7 or 8 nodes. Yin Nuashing lowered her head and thought for a moment. Sure enough, it's a far cry from the way we fight now. That's right. At that time, it was basically the Order warriors who carried the battle formation, the Temple of Origins, and the lower-level nodes, personally charging into the enemy's ranks. They would fight chaotically in the physical world, and as they fought, they would rush into the void and quickly return. If the node they were guarding accidentally collapsed, they would quickly carry the important defensive forces, such as the Temple of Origins and the lower-level nodes, fighting and retreating to a friendly node, bringing along a large number of enemies along with them. He was very excited. So you're the one who lured the enemies here? Well, that was a common thing at that time. Brother Lay shrunk his neck and laughed dryly. Often, a group of people would run away from the node, dragging their families with them to the neighboring node. The soldiers of chaos and order in the node would look at them and the specialties they brought with them at the same time. Then, both sides would continue to tussle, and the number of both sides would increase. Once this cycle began to accumulate from thousands of nodes, and finally rushed to the world-like cluster guarded by the central hub, it would be the decisive battle in this region of the void. Accumulating pressure, retreating, and retreating thousands of times before finally gathering for the final battle, either to recover a lost ground or to continue retreating. That aspect was very similar to the front line of the void. As expected, it was a fighting style imprinted in their instincts, retreating as they fought, and finally finishing the battle in a single stroke. Compared to the fighting style back then, I personally feel that the fighting style of the front line of the void is more reliable. Combining the two might not be bad. It feels good to move that framework to the world-like cluster for attack and defense. As Sui Feng spoke, he looked at the distant energy tower and sighed. If only we had the energy tower array back then, combining the two. Hui hurriedly answered, "Can't you die with more dignity?" "You're right." Everyone looked at each other, covering their faces and smiling bitterly. No matter how much power they gained, they would die with more dignity. How difficult. So that thing is gone? Yin Nuashing brought the topic back to the battle formation of order. That origin energy crystal entangled with the rules of order, the core of the battle formation of order. It should be gone. Those things are not in the records of the origin sanctum. Many things are gone. Brother Lay nodded helplessly. There's no trace of that thing among the things the gods left behind. Although there are still some things that have not been opened, to be honest, I don't have much hope. Brother Feng, why don't you make one yourself? Sui Feng shuddered and looked at Feng expectantly. That's right. With the things the gods left behind, it should be possible, right? Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes at the two and conjured an apple out of thin air with her left hand. Look, this is what you described. Then, she took out a durian with her right hand. Look, this is what I made according to your description. Everyone was speechless. Did she mean that the description did not match reality? How am I supposed to make a core of the battle formation of order if I only know its function? Look, a blade can hit, and so can a durian. Its function is to hit as well. Yin Nuashing kept rolling her eyes and took a bite of the apple with a crunch, speaking clearly as she chewed. There are no instructions at the beginning of the origin energy crystal. Even if I go in that direction, it's just a faceless thing. I don't know what is in the origin crystal and the origin energy crystal, so how am I supposed to make it? But since there is a direction, I'll just give it a try, but don't expect too much. Hui blinked. Why do I feel like you have found inspiration? Where did your inspiration come from? Yin Nuashing looked at the durian in her hand and pointed at the energy tower in front of them. The way the energy tower gathers power to attack, it feels a little similar. No, it's not even close. Just get the idea, don't mind the details. Do you want to eat durian? Yin Nuashing said calmly as she tore the durian open with her bare hands. The group came forward to share the durian. Sui Feng wiped his mouth and paused. Wait, what are we doing here? To see Jingyan talk about the resonance between the origin temple and the creation of order. Yin Nuashing calmly nibbled on the durian as her eyes turned to the magnificent temple. Don't tell me she killed herself in there? How long has it been? Why is there no news? If we keep talking, we'll be talking about the battle at the end of the last era. I'll go take a look. We was about to go to the Origin Temple to check out the situation when the entire temple began to gather energy, startling them. Sui Feng and the others reacted quickly and immediately understood the function of the energy. Oh, it's finally starting. I was wondering if I should make tea and wait. The energy burst from the Origin Temple suddenly spread out at infinite speed. The energy ripple made Yinuoxing feel a little like a domain. The domain enveloped the entire world, but the energy flowing in the domain was another presence. It seemed to be the presence of the energy tower of the last generation. So that's how it is. First, construct a domain, then use the origin of the creation as the aura of the domain. Then, use a method similar to homology tracing to lock onto all things that have similar structural cores. Then, carry out homology resonance and use a superior entity to influence a subordinate entity. Finally, forcefully change the domain. It's quite convenient. The main thing is that it has a domain that can be searched and locked onto quickly. Yinuoxing nodded in realization. She turned around and saw Sui Feng and the others in a daze. You don't know? We only know how the Origin Temple was completed. We didn't delve into the details. Sui Feng covered his face and turned away. It's not important, not important. Brother Lei also turned his head with an awkward expression. Yinuoxing, can you guys be reliable? Forget it, I didn't have much energy at that time. It's understandable. Brother, save me. It's out of control. There's too many. I can't handle it. Come and help. Yinuoxing, could they be a little more reliable? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.